to start the video.
This is a big evening. We've got a lot to cover. It's a presentation. And I'm Alice White, chair of the one. He's helping, of course, Wendy, who was here as our co-chair.
They should be.
Okay.
Sorry, we're having video issues. If you just give us a moment.
All right. So, Jordan, are you going to be presenting
Jeff,
on behalf of the road?
Can you see if anybody kicked the plug?
So audio is working, but video is not.
As far as I know, I'm going to ask some of our Rosa. You're online. Could you do me a favor and tell us if the audio works?
The audio works.
Great. Who is
The audio works, but I just see this dark.
Yeah, we're working on the cameras. The owls are. The
Okay.
owls have their eyes closed at the moment.
Yeah, and I can't see any of the other presenters either. It's just a gray screen, gray with just their name on it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nobody has their cameras on, but you will have to, Rosa, and Laura will have to. Board members have to have cameras on. Sorry.
Okay.
Well, for those who are just joining, we're waiting for video to reignite.
Did everybody scan?
Oh, thanks, Wendy. Yeah. That's a good thought.
You already announced that.
No, I didn't. So scan in so you are accounted for, please. Members. Oh, it's
It's who?
talking.
Can you hit that on the QR code so I can send? Well, that is disconcerting.
If you,
It's exactly where I'm just-
Sorry, I can't. hear
That's
it.
okay.
no, that's the wrong video. It should say the owl.
All right.
Sorry, can
Yeah.
I get into this space?
Sarah, we're gonna have you sit back for a moment while we try and figure out the issue. Just give us a second, see if we can get them. The owls aren't registered. No, it's, if we have to, I can just turn it around. In the worst case scenario.
Right.
It won't be pretty, that's all I'm gonna say.
Oh, I see, you're using my camera.
What we really do want is to.
We see you.
Yeah, I know. We're trying to get the owls to work.
Did you turn them on? Are the owls?
No,
Oh.
And now I don't see you anymore. But
no, I
see
turned
me.
it. I turned it off. I do see you though.
Is there a way we can get the presentation up or that's not gonna happen?
Yeah,
We
we
should
can.
be able to.
Yep.
Maybe we just wanna cut our losses here. I'm sorry, I touched it. I apologize. I'm thinking we are.
It's okay.
Presumably the start video button doesn't have to be hit, right? That's not as simple as that.
All right.
Yeah, the only other thing we could take is reboot this, but that's not ideal.
No. All right. Well, we'll run by presentation. Old school. They can hear us, so we should be okay.
Okay, so we're doing old school, my favorite, I guess, which is the presentation as you see it. I assume everyone can see it now?
Yep.
So they just can't see presenters? Is that what's missing?
Correct.
Okay, so that unfortunately is the situation. So thank you for your patience and apologies. So we're going to start with the Lower Manhattan Coastal Resiliency Update, and Jordan Salinger from the Mayor's Office of Climate and Environmental Justice is here, along with a number of other people. I'll ask you to introduce yourself as you go through the presentation. And take it away, Jordan. Welcome. Thank you so much.
Great. Thanks for having us. Yes, this is the latest update in our quarterly updates of the Lower Manhattan Coastal Resilience set of projects. I know that most of you have joined in the past, but this is a moment to do somewhat brief updates across all the projects. I know that in prior discussions, there was a desire to hear a little bit more on the work in the battery and some questions about interior drainage for the Clyde Seaport effort. And so we have those presentations up top. But as always, have updates across the other efforts. Also worth noting that this conversation has evolved over the years. We are now in a moment where a number of these projects are in construction, approaching construction. So bear with us as some of these conversations are kind of very fine-grained about construction moments, and Clyde Seaport, as you know, a much longer-term planning effort. So you may have whiplash moments as you bounce from project to project. Go to the next slide.
Oops, apologies. Down I go.
Yep, and I think I covered that, joined by folks across agencies, not small, to update, give a brief update on LMCR overall, and then walk through each of the individual efforts. Slide. So this is the map that many of you have maybe grown weary. You've seen so many times, but it is important to ground in covering the financial commitment here across projects, $1.7 billion. I will briefly go through each of the component parts. It does not include Eastside Coastal Resilience in the kind of overall LMCR subhead, but is a project that is moving along. It's just above us. First effort, Brooklyn Bridge Montgomery, or BMCR, $522 million project, combination of HUD, Housing and Urban Development, CDBG, Community Development Block Grant dollars, and city funds. You move down, the Seaport Coastal Resilience, the newest capital project in the mix, largely city capital dollars, but did receive a $50 million FEMA BRIC grant this year. To continue to move the Battery Coastal Resilience, entirely city funded effort. And then the two projects that Battery Park City is leading, their South project and their Northwest effort. Slide. And as I mentioned at the top, we are, I would say, approaching a moment where half these efforts are in construction or approaching construction. BMCR, obviously, that we'll be getting into the South Battery Park City work and Battery Coastal Resilience project. The Northwest is in the mix of design, but moving along at a rapid pace. Seaport Coastal Resilience, we're working towards beginning design. And so really over the next year plus will be the moment where we can really influence what that project looks like. And then Clyde Seaport Master Plan, as mentioned, kind of the longer term effort. But once again, another moment where we do not have a kind of a fully baked design, but we'll continue to work through that with this community. Slide. And so we've been asked in the past who all is involved. This is, I would say, maybe just the tip of the iceberg in terms of coordination across the city. Mayor's Office of Climate and Environmental Justice plays a coordination role, sets policy standards that are connected to our citywide policy goals and done in conjunction with NPCC, the New York Panel of Climate Change. EDC doing maybe the lion's share of work, leading design and construction on a number of projects. Again, 4 of 6 of these components that we just walked through. Parks, critically the owner of jurisdiction at the Battery. Battery Park City, leading those two projects, the south and the northwest, and DEC leading the effort. EFCR I mentioned before, and EFCR. We will note that DEP is not listed there, but is critical to all these efforts in helping to design interior drainage components. But if we go to the next slide, worth noting, I know this has come up in prior conversations as part of Plan YC. One of our commitments was to establish the new Bureau of Coastal Resilience at DEP. This was a decision, I would say, a long time coming, but really based on a desire to coordinate capital project delivery, ensure that we have a centralized maintenance entity for all these efforts. As you can see, a number of them are starting to approach the finish line. And at the end of the day, provide a central point of accountability. When there are challenges, it's always good to have one set of folks to reach out to. We felt that DEP was particularly well positioned to lead this effort based on their work within flood zone planning currently on stormwater. They have significant experience operating emergency and just-in-time systems, and as we have all benefit from, have expertise in delivering complex construction projects, water tunnels being the say classic example. Also worth noting that as part of this commitment, there was a desire to create this new bureau and hire a new deputy commissioner for coastal resilience. That person has been hired. Lorian Farrell is her name. And she joined us about a month ago and so has been getting up to speed on all of our efforts. I will say, in the meantime, nothing necessarily changes. We're allowing her some grace to get her footing. All the kind of existing projects continue with the teams as is. This is really kind of about looking forward and ensuring that that structure is set up. We'll also note that our office, Mayor's Office of Climate and Environmental Justice, has a new head, Elijah Hutchinson, and it has worked with him in the past. He was leading up the FIDI Seaport work. So it's not like we're disappearing. As I mentioned, nothing significant changes, but there's kind of a much stronger governance structure that we are starting to set up. With that, we'll hand off to the battery team to walk through.
Jordan, I hate to interrupt, and I don't want to set a precedent for jumping in with a question, but before we just leave this new established resiliency bureau, can you just give an example of how this is going to work?
Sure. So, I would say in areas where there is not an existing project, and so I think we made the decision that we didn't want to upset lots of ongoing work or years of entrenched agency knowledge. I think it's really kind of a forward-looking. I think there will be some effort of analysis across the portfolio, and if there are kind of misaligned priorities, things may move. But I think for the case of FIDI Seaport, for example, there's not a scenario where that moves over to DEP tomorrow. I think that as we think about the long term, where we need to be in 5 years, once we after getting permits, it could live there. I would say no decision has been made. So it's really about any new efforts,
including this project.
I think that's a great example. There are dozens of projects that could kind of spin out from that, and it's kind of not. We didn't want to take away the kind of great momentum and great leadership that UBC have in this case. But yes, I think there are a number of efforts that come out of PATS.
Okay, thanks a lot. Yeah. Okay,
And we're moving on.
you see.
If we're moving to the battery, could you ignite Steve Nelson? He's on his own participant to be a camera.
Oh.
So, Andrew Abend for our Seaport.
And Justine has raised her hand.
What we're gonna do.
Okay, work. Whoops. Let me stop sharing.
Okay, you know what?
Give me 1 second so I can
Do
move.
you want to, Diana, do you want to do me a favor in your own capacity and just introduce who's speaking next? I couldn't quite make out.
Yeah, our capital team, Kathleen and Steve Nelson are on from the capital team, which will speak to the battery project
Thank you.
and our friends from Parks.
Steve Nelson has moved over now. Who else?
Andrew
Can you
Abbott
hear me?
Come, Steve.
Andrew has moved over. Anybody else?
Great. Okay.
Okay. Okay. Okay, so I'll go back to sharing the presentation again.
Okay, apologies again about the technical difficulties. You're welcome to start. Steve, if you're.
Sure. Hi, my name's Steve Nelson. I'm project director with EDC Capital. I'm here to present the battery, and then I will hand it off to our construction manager, Patrick Prime from Hunter Roberts. So EDC is managing this project on behalf of New York City Parks. Our design is 100% complete as of spring of 2023. We're currently seeking Envision certification, which is a program to lower our carbon footprint, and this is for large infrastructure projects. Some construction updates. The National Park Service temporary security tent, which is in construction, started in July of 2023. The LMCR battery early salvage work is complete, and that is to reuse existing material that's on site. We will reuse and refurbish some of that material. Hunter Roberts is currently in procurement for several construction contracts that are left. And then we've onboarded CARP Strategies as our construction community liaison, who will be with us throughout construction to assist the community in any information that they need, and also contacting and keeping the community board updated as construction proceeds. Some upcoming milestones. The wharf will begin to start demolishing the existing wharf in January, this coming January. The National Park Service temporary security tent, they will be transitioning over in January as well. And then we anticipate pile driving for the new wharf coming this spring of 2024. And as I said before, if you want to go to the next slide, our construction community liaison, CARP Strategies, they're here with us today. They will be the day-to-day, in between our construction team and the community. Our day-to-day managers would be Ariana Cipriani and Lily Zabalos. And again, any questions or concerns, they will be able to handle that. And they'll be providing regular updates. And if you want, they will be monitoring our email address below, info@batterycoastalresilience.com. And then obviously we will be posting updates on the NewYorkCity.gov website. With that, I will hand it to Patrick Prime, who will talk about some of the scheduling that's going on, and then what will be open to the public and what's closed to the public during construction.
Great. I just want to ask, do you want the public to use this email address?
Yes, that's for the public. We've been getting questions from the public for quite a while now through that email.
Share that email again, please.
We will. Yep, I'll drop
Thank
it in the chat.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
No problem.
And
It's info@batterycoastalresilience.com. Info@batterycoastalresilience.com. Oh,
and did you want to take questions on each section, or how did you want to do it?
yeah, I think that probably might make sense. So, we're not quite done with this section. So at the end of the battery, we'll take questions on the battery.
Is that, was that email?
Yeah, I just said it, but we will, and we're putting it in the chat, but it's info@Battery Coastal Resilience.
And it'll be available.
Oh, it's the document. Yes, it is.
If you log into actually the WebEx, you'll be able.
Do you want to come up here? You can come right up front and center.
Yeah,
Or,
Giving the network.
okay, well,
don't have it.
I,
So the desk, give me one desk.
I don't have it. Sorry.
okay, so sorry about that. Feel free to move if you guys can't see because there are seats up front. Okay, so we'll continue on the battery.
I'm
Oh.
Construction,
Welcome.
Ariana's actually here joining us as well. Forward facing strategies.
Do you want to speak up and maybe stand up here so the people in the room can hear?
Just so everybody knows, the cameras, which are supposed to work, are also the microphones. So those giant things in the middle of the table are what pick you up. So for the recording, since we don't take meeting minutes, we really appreciate if you could speak loudly and face the lovely things. Please don't move them, Sarah. Okay.
Planning, working on the parts battery team, Grace Tang, who's the project manager.
I'm sorry, but we can't hear anything.
To speak, could you come to the table to speak?
Maybe.
I thought I was doing well.
Yeah, no, you're quite soft spoken, sir.
All right. My name is Mike Bradley. I'm with the Parks Environmental Planning Division, working on the battery team. Also with me tonight online is Grace Tang, project manager.
Can that be heard, everybody?
Hi, everyone. I'm here from New York City Parks.
Thank you, Grace.
Okay,
Okay.
go to the next slide.
Yes.
So this next slide is basically what we were doing in the first half of this year. I know as we spoke last time, doing structural work to west or east side of the wharf to bring it up to a level service for Statue Cruise to operate out of. Some of the early salvage work to remove the granite that will eventually be reinstalled in the park was complete. And then basically to get out of the way so National Park Service would start their tent work. It's the next slide.
Not going over this one?
Yeah,
That's what we were just.
you want to do it one more time because I think that's
Oh, yeah.
helpful with the map up.
Yeah, so basically kind of right in front of the View Restaurant, in the beginning half of this year, we completed some structural work under the wharf to bring those existing timber piles up to a level that will be able to service Statue Cruise operations. And then in that magenta area, we salvaged all the existing granite that was going to be in conflict of where those Statue Cruise operations were going to be happening during our first phase of construction. And it moved those over into a small storage area we set up in the oval so we can have them stored, being ready to be processed to be reused in the next slide is what you'll see out there today. This is kind of from the middle of the summer and how the park will be through January when we're going to start construction. The National Park Service tent is underway. We're going to wrap up by the end of the year. We've had that staging area set up. The water taxi has demobilized. And then the tent the security operations are operating an existing tent. We just one thing we want to point out is through all the efforts with the Conservancy and the stakeholders, everything that we've managed to keep open during these operations. Keeping some access to the wharf where we can, with all the other amenities that are in the park.
Do you mind if you would just, because I think for most people, they wouldn't be able to understand what all of the legend is offering up. Can you just point to what everything is and
Yeah.
we can just go over it that way? just
So,
once?
Yeah, so this brown area here is where the current National Park Service construction's going on. This is where we did the salvage work to get all the granite out so we can reuse it in the rebuild. This water taxi that was removed in October, right? This is the tent that's going to be eventually taken down so we can start our phase one work. And then we have our small storage area where we have our granite that we've salvaged so far stored. We're going to be expanding that for when we're coming to a larger overall salvage effort beginning of this year or beginning of next year. And then the light pink purple area is the South Barry Park City.
And could you explain where the public can and can't go is all the green?
So right now, everything in green minus this kind of dash line area where National Park Service has their security. The secure area after they go through screening. The rest of this is all open to the public. In the coming weeks, we are going to be starting to close up some of the oval so we can build out our storage area. We're prepared for when we are going to mobilize for the larger overall salvage effort, which we go to the next slide.
Before we leave this one, I'm just still a little fixed on this number 6.
Mhm.
The light brown versus the dark brown, how this affects the view, the Battery View restaurant or whatever will take its place, or is there a view anymore? What, oh, if you maybe you have a
So
slide.
if you go, we have some pictures.
Oh, great.
We go down to the next 2 slides.
Thanks.
And I'm gonna ask because they did approach the community board and ask for adjustments, but there looks like there's been no adjustments done for the National Park Service fencing and things like that.
So we can't really speak to that because it's not under our control from National Park Service perspective.
Okay.
For conservancy in terms of taking down some screening so that we can keep the views open for the public when they're in the boss. We did make some adjustments so if we work with the patio while they were out there. Once we yeah. So before we move on, so this is just kind of the early salvage work we were doing, taking all the granite capstones. We took these benches, we took the granite cladding along those walls, all to be repurposed in the new rebuild. This is just the storage area that was set up at the bottom. If you go to the next slide, see the national parks tent construction. So this is looking at the tent construction from the Bosque area. They've kept their fencing back behind the Bosque, so the Bosque is accessible. And this is kind of looking from over by the playground, coming in. Kept the fence as far back as they can to be able to safely do their work, but still maintaining access to the views. The front door.
So why don't we go through the whole battery and then let's ask the questions if that's okay.
So next slide. So this slide's showing kind of what our footprint will be come January through the middle of 2025. This is us taking our first phase of work from the East Coast Memorial, the Pier A, starting the demolition of the wharf, and then eventually pile driving, rebuilding the structure, redoing all the drainage in the pink area, and then redoing all the hardscape and landscaping. Just to point out, I know that there is a lot more other colors than green right now, but for the most part, we've managed to keep open as much of the stuff that was open in our previous phases of work, open to the public, minus access to the waterfront, because we're going to be ripping it out and rebuilding it.
Can you do the same thing you did at the other slide?
So this pink area is our first phase of work. Sorry, I'm not colorblind, so I think that's brown.
Yeah.
The brown area is where National Parks is going to be demolishing their tent and eventually rebuilding it. The hatched area here is the Statue Cruises operations out of that temporary tent that's being constructed right now in front of the view. The darker blue areas are the DOT resiliency project that we're coordinating their access throughout the park. There's some renovations to the field house going on by the parks over by the playground. And then we have our built out storage area where we're going to be storing all the granite that's coming off both the water side of the wharf and then the park within the pink area. We're going to be cleaning it, reprocessing it, so we can eventually put it back in various fashions and kind of save some of the characteristics of the park that's out there right now. South Barry Park City. Yes.
So I just want to be real clear that the only access into the Battery at all is from the east side, correct? Anything along State Street, nothing along Battery Place. Because it even looks like at the top where Broadway intersects to the park, there's a subway access up there, and then there's obviously access to the restrooms, which I see you have noted sort of a restroom symbol on here, but how clear is the signage going to be for people who need to use the restroom?
Tammy, let's, if you don't mind, I think let's just get the whole presentation in and then dive into those questions, because I think that's gonna open up a lot of other questions. So can you finish your presentation if that's okay? Respectfully?
Yeah.
Thanks.
I don't know, that's everything for this slide. So we can go down to the last slide and then we can take questions. So then this is from
2020 to
middle of
2026.
2025 to the middle of 2026, after National Park Service has rebuilt the tent and moves their operations back to kind of their existing condition. We'll be moving over to the area by the View Restaurant, doing a similar process of ripping out the existing wharf, building that typical wharf structure, but also building a bridging structure over the tunnel, and then kind of going around the same effort of salvaging all the granite that's within there and then repurposing it and kind of trying to restore the current characteristics of a park.
Is the restaurant closed?
Not sure. We are we're going to do everything we can to keep it open.
There's no.
We are working around all four sides of it.
Yeah.
So it is very very invasive work with having to rip out the board structure, having to put in temporary means of holding back the battery in the river. Then on the pretty intensive work we're doing, we have to build out a no area and we do that little plaza and drainage.
Is this the whole presentation for the Battery?
This is the last slide.
From the whole group?
Yes.
Okay, so now, Tammy, hit it, back to that slide.
Well, first I'm going to start with this one because it looks like from July 2025 or somewhere thereof, that restaurant will be unable to operate game deliveries or anything because they have no access. The public doesn't have access to it.
We've been coordinating with the operator and Parks Revenue to ensure that everyone's up to date.
Thanks, Steve. We'd certainly like to have an understanding about. There's up to date and ability to operate, so it's not necessarily the same thing.
We're coordinating with them.
Okay. What does that mean, Steve?
They're negotiating.
Okay.
Can't hear, sorry.
Say it again.
There are no. Go ahead and repeat it. Sorry, I don't need to repeat for you. That's it. Would you like some water?
It will be very difficult for the restaurant to operate, if not impossible. We don't know that represents, the pink represents everything all at once. Not all of that activity will be happening at the same time. So there may be a situation, a condition where they don't have safe access. It might be access, but not safe access for the fire department buildings. Also, it will not be very pleasant to be there because of a great deal of heavy construction around. So it may be that the operator either will held to or will decide not to operate. In which case he's interested in negotiating some kind of alternate arrangement to.
Yeah.
Still need to be over this.
And then I'm just gonna go back one slide, Wendy, and then it's all to you. This is current, so what we're talking about, we're in winter now, right? So this is January 2024 through July of 25, which encompasses 2 full seasons for the battery. In everything that means, growing seasons, everything for everything, tourist seasons, public access, business access. I am concerned, very concerned, because it looks like State Street is the only access into the park. There's been, that's what that pink dotted line is.
This pink dotted line is where our vehicle access would be through the oval. We're building out a road. We're gonna leave the area kind of between our staging area and the actual work site open. Have it kind of closed as needed with flaggers to get trucks through, but otherwise maintaining access through here. This kind of hashed purple line is representing kind of how we are redirecting the bikeway around the top of the top of the oval here. Getting access back.
So the purple area, people can walk in.
No,
So the purple
there
area
is no access at all from the Battery Place side, is what he's saying. 0.
Similar to what's there right now.
Oh, that purple area is representing. So this purple area is what's out there right now. That's
That's
representing
my
itself.
understanding.
Yeah.
Just the purple, those
So this-
arrows
this
make no
purple-
sense to me.
This purple hash, I think it's access to the bikeway.
So I guess for you, my question is, I have concerns about public access. The street hawkers are not leaving. So now, the sidewalks are super compressed with the bike path and the pedestrian path. We spoke about this with the Battery Park City Authority and kind of got this is the way it is. There's no better, this is what we're doing, kind of a thing. And I have concerns about access to the bathrooms that are in the park, and making sure that there are, not 100% sure that bathroom is accessible, but making sure there's accessible ways to get to the park, which it looks to me from your little thing, they'd have to go all the way, the long way around the oval, correct? In order to access the bathrooms.
Which bathroom? They all are. But regardless, yes, there's, the only access is by going around the oval.
And is Parks gonna do extra PEPs assigned to the area to help direct people and secure it if there's not a lot of good, clean views because there'll be so many fences and things up, so there'll be a lot of dark corners and spots.
For where?
Sorry.
Do our best to, for the park is safe and.
My questions are done. Thank you so much.
Wendy.
Thank you very much. I haven't been down there in a few weeks, but I was part of the crew that was trying to rescue some of the plants to take over to the Gotham Park. So when I was there that day, I was, and I tried to tell everyone, I was very concerned with the lack of signs. There were a couple signs along the oval, like below the fence, but they're like this. They're probably about that size, maybe a little bigger, and they're on the lower part of the fence. And walking by it, it's just so much, no one's reading it and stopping. So what I would love to do is join your big old sign with the lady with the little kid that's under the water. I'd love to request that gets put up on the purple side someplace with a clear, what are we doing here? Not this. Not any of this, but what are we doing here in plain language that a child could understand, that someone who knows how to read could say, we're, the purple part is the beginning of basically holding the next Sandy, back. So that your big giant sign, which I love, that's, we talked about it for a long time. I want to see that more places. I don't know if it's waterproof or not, but I think it is. But something like that on the purple side, because that really is part of the protecting, apartments on the dry side. And then on the wet side, which we all know that the park will flood, so you're reinforcing it because of, boats and you need to take it up a few feet, but it will flood. I'd love signs in the park side saying, we are reinforcing this, but it will flood. And I just feel like I'm a broken record to have explainable, easy signs that are artistically and clear. And I know that there are a couple signs up right now, but they're not what we're talking about. So, if we could do some of those, if the community board could help you in any way, I'd be happy to. If we could, have an education presentation with a group of fifth graders, they could probably even help us design it. It doesn't have to be super intense, but
Right now, the joggers can't figure it out.
exactly. I just feel like this being on a sign for what's up there now, because I did stop and look at it and I was happy there was a sign. I want to praise you that there was an actual sign, but there's not enough and they're not clear. And so you could have things like wayfinding signs that are helpful, and also what are we doing here and why is this a good thing and why is this something that New York City needs to do? And we all hate construction, but on the other side of it's going to be, stronger and improved New York City. So is that possible?
I think that gets directed to you.
Appreciate the question. If there's an opportunity to rationalize without overwhelming, I think that's always the challenge of more is more, and can be more confusing, but, I hear you and we'll have a conversation on.
I just.
Okay, other
It's hard
questions?
to-
Yeah. Jeff,
On the last slide, the blue area was described as the DOT resilience project. And I'm sure you must have explained whatever that was in the past, but I don't remember. And based on the locations, it looks like it tracks the FDR battery underpass. And so my second part first part of the question is, can you describe what that project is? And the second part is, will that underpass be closed during?
Sure. So we've periodically had DOT update on that work. You're correct. It is for the battery underpass. I think in many forms looks similar to the work done at States Tunnel just above. But it is a combination of flip updates at the entry, some work within the access spouts, if you will, with more technical term than that. Levers to prevent entry, sort of hardening of that access. In terms of impacts to the closing of the tunnel, I think we have to check with DOT. Yeah, I think they were at our a couple of meetings ago. We can invite them to
all the blue areas about battery underpass, or just? I mean, this building number 10, for example. I mean, they are all colored blue and they all say New York City DOT Resiliency Project. But I was curious. What?
All those, so those basically represent some of the different ventilation shafts that are within the park and where they have access to.
So I think they've said in the past, but that doesn't necessarily represent all of the work that they've done. Some of the heritage that we need access to. I think you're correct that most of the work is done in smaller job.
Is this something that it's very difficult to read. I'm sort of curious why, given you're in construction, we can't see let's say, we'll set a construction plan, but some sort of construction document, so we understand what it is we're getting and where you're at in the process. These drawings are highly schematic, they're basically flat, we have no idea what really is being proposed, so I might recommend that on the next round, you up the ante a little bit and provide construction documents that then illustrate some of this, but very hard to know what a triangular shape is. You know, what does it mean in terms of its height? Also, really missing from here, and to Wendy too, is in addition to definition of all of these different colors more elaborately, is pedestrians path, how people are moving through this is completely illegible. I don't know, somewhere it's there, but I don't see it. And I think it would be very helpful, not only here, but again, what Wendy said, in some way made public, and maybe it is. I haven't been down a while, but I just think that we need to know, how do we move through this space for the next 2 years and onwards. So just in looking ahead, that's going to be a critical part that's missing today.
Do you think you
sorry.
could send us those? I mean, you must have pedestrian flow.
Full circles with the arrows.
I think what we're looking for is just the drawing of just the whole park with just showing the open pedestrian paths. That would be, probably handy. And then maybe a construction document of the plan of, the different phases of the project. And what these things are, 10 and 12 and 13. Right now we're reading patch colors and without any sense of really what it is we're looking at. I don't know if I'm the only one that feels that way, but I would think that would help the public generally. So
You have
are
hands
there
up.
other,
Yes, you have hands up.
yeah, just in the room, committee members in the room? Okay, no questions. I would just say also that we will probably write a resolution at some point on this. And so, your thoughts will be reported tonight and they will be important as we go forward in writing resolution on the whole presentation at the quarterly update. Okay.
Justine has her hand up.
Can I speak?
On everything that's
I can't hear you, Alice. I'm waiting for you. If I'm recognized, I'll have just a quick question.
Yeah, Justine, go ahead.
Thank you
Sorry.
so much. Thanks, guys. Thank you for the presentation. So I think I was going to follow up on what you said, Alice, about identifying what's going on in the picture or in that schematic, because I'm still trying to figure out where the restaurant is. It's not 10, right? Where is the restaurant?
It's over by where the bathrooms are. You see where 11 is, the field house?
Yep,
That's the bathrooms that are behind the restaurants there. So
got it.
if you look forward on this diagram, the two blue, again, it's confusing here how the restaurant's going to operate because it's in between what you see as a bathroom marker and the two blue
Two blue
markers,
things. Okay.
which are noted as surface work areas.
Yeah, and there's just no way in. No, I get that. And what I also don't understand is with the pedestrian flow as put forth. So you're going to be having work at 11, you're going to be having work where the little blue dots are, and by 10. So people, where are they going to walk to get to the bathroom? And that's in the south. Well, I'm looking at the south, the far right corner of the picture as I'm looking at it. And then at the top, when you come in on State Street, you're going to have to go around all the construction to get to the bathroom. Looks like, right? I mean, you're going to have to do that. And again, with the signage, as Wendy was saying, it's a long walk to get to a bathroom and it's going to be very confusing. So yes,
Paths are shown on here, but we could certainly show you a diagram next time with some lines traced on top of the park paths.
just say where you're looking for people to go, number one, and then also for looking at identifying landmarks that exist. And if they're going to go away, that's fine, or they're going to move, that's fine to tell us. But at least for people like me that don't understand where things are, even though I'm familiar with the area, putting some labels, even if it's going to be a number or a letter, and then having it on the side as a legend. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Justine. Ask the battery team and do a separate presentation to this committee. We've done this in the past. Clearly, we're going to need it here. There is a lack of information that's understandable. It's great that you've included it, and I know you've adjusted things to do so. but I think we'll need more, and at that point, we can dive in, you know, as well, a little bit more into detail, hopefully. So maybe in the not too distant future, we can ask you to come back with the plans, with, you know, information that's missing tonight, and maybe entertain a few more questions, but still open for questions now. Anybody else?
There's a call in.
Alice, I have a question. It's Laura. Hello?
Yep.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay, I actually think it's a really great presentation and I appreciate all you guys are doing. Where will the final National Park Service ticketing tent be, or is it going to be in the tent, or what is there a plan for where it's going to end up?
I mean, as of now, the NPS will rebuild the current tent at the end of wharf construction.
Hear that, Laura?
What's that?
Yell
We
it
don't
again.
have,
Castle Clinton. It will remain in Castle Clinton, Laura. Can you hear that?
So it's going to be this mix. Okay. All right. Yeah, fine. I mean, it's too bad, but whatever. I don't want to hold up the meeting. I just was curious. Thanks. Hi, Grace. Hi, Jordan. Hi, everybody.
The public, there's a person from a dial-in number.
Okay.
I'm
Well,
going to request to unmute them.
okay. Well,
Member of the public.
we don't know who this person is, but I guess
If you're a dial-in user from 646-251, I've sent you a request to unmute yourself. I've moved them up to be a panelist so they can unmute themselves. Dial-in user 646-251. Okay.
so. Are there any other questions or thoughts for this part of the project? Okay.
They
I
took
do
their
wanna
hand
ask,
down.
Where's the conservancy on this plan? So they totally engaged with you. You know, Lori Price. We spoke with her. Are they not completely on board as best they can be with the plan? If they
Kind
stand?
of, a lot of the, how we got to the oval storage area was done hand in hand with Lori. We originally were in a bunch of different spaces kind of scattered throughout the park. Lori, certain amount of square footage to store all this granite that we wanted to use, repurpose and bring back into the park. And we worked with Lori and her team to kind of get to the point where let's consolidate everything into the oval instead of having smaller areas kind of throughout the park. Push all the construction into one condensed area. Yeah, so we've been working with Lori and Steve, from her operation manager of the park. So,
And she's satisfied with the plan, exploring the approach.
and as far as I'm aware,
I think that's a good question for Lori herself.
I did ask it.
Can I ask one just like a little bit out there question? So when you put all the granite on the oval, that will compact the soil and it will be very, and I know you'll do some work at some point. And one of the things that we've been presented over and over again is the rain, especially you need to have more sponges and more places to collect rainwater. So I'm just gonna put it out there because I don't think I've heard anything. So when you take all this granite off of the oval, it will need to get a lot of work to get it back to be able to grow plants and grass because it's gonna be really compacted, I'm assuming, with that heavy granite on top of it. Is that something that there can be a thought process to think about it as a rainwater collection area? You know, or something like that in the future. I don't know what that means exactly. I'm not the right person, but I'm just gonna throw that out there. That since you have to do the work anyway, it's gonna be, you know, you're gonna have to do something. If we could think about that in a way so that the water in a deluge goes there and not into our sewer.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, I look forward that you'll come back to this committee to do a little bit more of an in-depth with a few more documents, but very helpful for us with that. Thank you so much for the battery portion, and looks like we're sort of done with that, yes? And
We're
so,
interested. Thank you.
next up is,
It's the Friday support from Alexis.
Please, closer to the microphones, please.
So good evening, I'm Alexis Taylor, VP of Climate Resilience at EDC, and also the project director for the Friday Seaport Project, and joined by my EDC colleague, Erin Tao. She is the deputy project manager and also leads our community engagement work. We'll be speaking that night. And then online we have Ronnie Dietz from Arcadis. She is the kind of lead consultant firm. So I will pass it.
thank you. Welcome. Great. You have this great team here.
So I'll do the update. Louder about.
Yeah, remember you're talking. Yeah, either that. Remember you're talking to the owl in the middle of the room.
Yeah, you guys need to talk louder. We can't hear you. Thank you, though.
Slide into the team.
So most recently we had on the plans. There were several of you in attendance with us. This was sort of our big public engagement. Had really an opportunity to widen the net of people that are preaching and informing about this.
I'm sorry, we can't hear you.
Would you do me a favor and switch with Sarah, who's right here? Sorry, Sarah, I'm moving.
Let's try, go ahead and just, can you hear better? Go ahead. speak into
Please
this.
try.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Better?
Is that better, everybody?
So far it's better.
Person
Don't hear a thing.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if the person who's speaking now, no, it's not better. It was for a second.
Oh,
It could be.
louder.
Yeah.
So these don't aren't working at all.
Give me 1 second and see what we have. Yeah. Yep, we're gonna do audio off the lovely laptop that you got here. So
Speak for the computer.
speak to the computer. Go for it.
Hear me better?
I think so.
You sort of sound like a Smurf.
Oh no.
Probably swing around to the side.
You
Make this
yeah.
the speaking seat.
Here.
I'm gonna move myself, so off we go.
Thank you all for big understanding of these technical difficulties.
We just need to share the presentation.
We just heard that really well.
Yay!
What happened?
You just, this is the only speaker and mic working. So. Owls are taking.
You can sit down.
What I want to do is just move that down. So in order, you'll
Drop it,
just,
scroll,
yep,
yeah.
I'm gonna give you the mouse
Sounds good.
and move out of the way. Good now.
Okay, so the Resilience Plus Expo, this was our big public event that happened in September. Really an opportunity for the community to learn more about the FIDI and Seaport Resilience Plan, and then also an opportunity to learn just generally about climate change and some of the other resiliency initiatives happening throughout Manhattan. So it was a really great event. We had about 300 people in attendance. They got a chance to sort of walk around. It was sort of an open house format. So they got to learn about the design of the project, talk to members of our team, and then also provide some feedback on some of the open space programming. And then also we had some walking tours so people could actually look at what the project area looks like. And then the other engagement that we've been really working on lately is reaching out to CBOs and finding opportunities to do sort of more in-person engagement that really meets people where they are. So most recently, we worked with Gotham Park, was tabling at their block party that they held earlier in November. So again, just looking for sort of informal opportunities to really talk to people and spread awareness about the project.
Yeah, before you go to the next slide, I just want to thank you. See that big
Yep, you're in it.
sign right there? I have
That's for you.
Picture of it. I want everyone in the room to see that, and I want that to be everywhere all over the city, maybe in the middle of the Oculus, or, you know, on every big sign that we have, every bike path. I don't know if you can see that, but it was very visually obvious.
Really drives the message home.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And Wendy, is that you in the bottom right?
Yes,
Sorry,
yes.
that was me. Yeah.
So we also just wanted to give sort of an overview of some of the feedback we got from the Resilience Plus Expo. So people had an opportunity to just talk to our project members, give feedback that way. And then we also had some interactive activities for them to give feedback on. So what we heard from people is that having these sorts of events where we talk more broadly about resiliency is really helpful, so people can get an understanding of, you know, what we're doing citywide and sort of how our project fits into the larger strategy that the city has. And then I would say the majority of the feedback that we got really focused on the open space programming and then also site-wide design. So we heard a lot from people, interest in sort of ecological measures that could be taken, a lot of interest in plantings, and then also had a lot of comments about how sort of this project interacts with the surrounding areas. So got a lot of questions about, you know, how does our project interact with the FDR? Also several questions about drainage and stormwater as well. And then in terms of sort of site specific questions we got or comments we got a lot of interest around the Seaport Piers area. So this is Pier 15 up to the Brooklyn Bridge. So a lot of interest around sort of preserving historical uses and also creating community spaces there. And then generally across the board, a lot of interest around sort of creating flexibility in the open space so that there can be diversity in the types of programming that goes into it in the future. And then also we have this on our website as well. So we have sort of a more broader overview of some of the summarizing the feedback that we got if you all want to sort of check that out or read more into it. And with that, I will pass it over to Ronnie to talk about stormwater.
Awesome. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Well, yes, thank you. Welcome.
Phew. Okay. Awesome. Hi all, great to be back. I know that on prior calls for FiDi Seaport, we might have covered the pump station as a key part of our drainage infrastructure strategy. And tonight I'm excited to shift gears a bit and talk more about what we're doing from a broader stormwater management strategy. And this includes green infrastructure, water reuse, and thinking collectively about how both green and gray infrastructure come together to ultimately benefit the new area that we're creating, as well as a broader study area that I'll take you all through. So if we go to the next slide. So the first piece is just zooming into some of the shoreline extension green infrastructure. Before I dive in though, I just wanted to pause for a moment and kind of talk about the two ways that we're thinking of managing stormwater. So the rain that falls from the sky that now lands on our new shoreline extension and how we're going to manage that. So our top goal, and you can see this on the right-hand side of the screen, just very simply with those arrows up and down. Our goal is to manage as much water above ground before it reaches a sewer system. And our best way to do that is through green infrastructure practices. And I'll talk more about what those look like here in a few slides. But the great part about this is that for the most part, we can hopefully absorb water back into the ground. And we can also help to pre-treat that rainwater before it would say enter into any type of sewer system or would run off back into the East River. Once we get to a point where there's too much water and we kind of exceed a certain amount of either intensity or total duration of rainfall, then the water would enter into the sewer system. But what's really important is that the last thing we want to do is to exacerbate the existing combined sewer system that's in Lower Manhattan, the existing pipes that right now take water from homes, from businesses, from downspouts to the wastewater treatment plant over to Newtown Creek. And instead, our goal here is to capture that water and redirect it through a new separate storm sewer system that would be below ground. This term is also referred to often as an MS4, a municipal separated storm sewer system. So if you hear me say that as well, the two are interchangeable. But yes, today we're going to just talk about green infrastructure and what we're looking at and how we can really leverage green spaces to help us with managing rainwater and stormwater runoff. So if we go to the next slide. So thinking about green infrastructure practices across the site, so what you see here is a cross section of the FiDi Seaport Master Plan. You can see kind of in orange where we have that caisson infill, that's the flood protection. And you can see that there's a big dotted black line in the middle of the site. And what that line represents is the high point separating the rainfall that would drain by gravity either to the East River or the water that would flow back to the city. So the quote dry side, which is shown in blue, that's the water that we're really focused on managing through green infrastructure practices, through a separate storm sewer system, because the wet side, so the side that is shown in pink, that's where water will just drain overland by gravity and ultimately make its way back to the East River. So it's still important to think about pre-treating and thinking about everything we can do to retain that. But for the most part, whether it's regulations or whether it's just best practices, we're really focused on that quote dry side of the flood protection. We go to the next slide. So talking about those regulatory requirements, and I won't spend a ton of time talking about this tonight, but as we start to think about the design of the shoreline extension and this whole stormwater sewer system, we have to comply with what's called the Unified Stormwater Rule. And this applies to any construction permit that's disturbing more than 20,000 square feet. And there's a requirement to manage the first 1.5 inches of rain. Our goals, though, as part of this project is to basically maintain and to retain more than that and to see how much we can to ultimately minimize the amount that runs off. And to also think about water quality and peak reduction runoff goals, both during as well as post-construction. And if folks want to see those slides in terms of more details on what Unified Stormwater Rule entail, we can certainly share these and you can read a whole lot more. But just to say that the regulations do really focus on preventing stormwater pollution during construction, and then also thinking about how we can manage rainfall on site to hopefully start to minimize the amount of stress that's on a sewer system. So if we keep going, this Unified Stormwater Rule starts to lay out an overview of green infrastructure practices. And I think this slide is really helpful in terms of just starting to break out when we talk about green infrastructure, what are all those different ways that we can be thinking about managing water? So the top left talks about infiltration, and that's probably the most simple way when water is captured and it's absorbed into the soil and it works its way back into the ground. There's also filtration, which is jumping over to the right-hand side, where the water would pass through some type of filtration media, which helps to reduce pollutants. So you can think about that water almost trying to work its way through a maze and the pollutants getting stuck before it would enter into any type of conveyance feature like a separate storm sewer system. And a good example there is sand filter. There's also evapotranspiration. The best practice to think of there is a green roof when the water's captured and then it evaporates back into the atmosphere. There's detention, where water is temporarily stored and released at a lower flow rate. So detention tanks are another green infrastructure practice below grade that can be used to ultimately help to take water and return it back to the sewer system when it has capacity. And then the last piece of this too is reuse. And that's thinking about when water's captured and repurposed for, say, a non-irrigation purpose. And this is something that we're looking more into as part of our energy and sustainability strategy. I know we've spoken to you all about that on prior calls, but we are really excited to think about potable and non-potable water reuse on site. So the last thing that we need to do is have drinking water be, say, irrigating the green spaces that you would see on site. So thinking about closed loop systems and how we can recycle water as part of the design. So if we go to the next slide, I just wanted to call out that infiltration versus filtration, because this is a lot of what we're really looking at right now. This is because of how we're thinking so broadly about that shoreline extension at the moment, and really starting to think about how we can either take that storm and rainwater and infiltrate it to existing soil, or filtration and thinking about those types of materials that we would want to use as our fill, and how we can design that such that it can pre-treat prior to stormwater returning to a sewer system. So that's kind of the two ends of the spectrum that we're looking at, and we'll see what these actually look like on the next few slides here in a few. So if we go to the next slide. So to dive into this study, what we've been doing is breaking our really large study area out into a couple of different zones. The reason for this is just because the study area is so vast, and it includes areas that are heavily dominated by imperviousness, like the ferry terminals just south of where you have that focus area. You have some areas that have more green space, like what's shown here. And then you also have the historic South Street Seaport area. And we're breaking each of these into their own zones to understand what strategies make the most sense for managing the rainwater that falls and the stormwater that exists on site. So we right now are zooming in on this area in the red box, and we're identifying different stormwater practices that we could use. Our first step is to ensure that we're complying with those local regulatory requirements. So that's that unified stormwater rule that I spoke about. We're looking to see how, first and foremost, we can capture, store, and reuse stormwater on site. We think it's really important that where we can retain that water, we certainly do so. We're also looking at the opportunities to capture additional water from the FDR Drive and thinking about ways in which we could redirect and take some of the water that currently falls in the upland areas of Lower Manhattan and help to give it a new home. And then we're thinking about flexibility of practices across the site. Erin mentioned that too, in terms of just wanting to see different flexibility in our open spaces, and where we can accomplish that with also green infrastructure is certainly helpful. But we also recognize that there are challenges and trade-offs, and those are some of those design considerations that are also noted on this slide. So you can think about the fact that we also need to make sure that we can get any type of water to where existing sewer outfalls are located, and thinking about how you route water through pipes in order to do so. That connects into the next point also, in terms of just thinking about all of this as part of a strategy and ensuring the appropriate compatibility and connectivity with other drainage improvements, and making sure we have a system here that works, including those sewer upgrades, and then ultimately a pump station too for those emergency wet weather conditions. And then the last thing that we're looking through is really future sea level rise impacts. You may not think about it, but the shoreline extension and the pieces of this that are on the flood protected side may be below sea level in the future. And that really starts to impact our ability to drain by gravity. And the last thing we want to do is to make this a more complicated system than it needs to be. So just getting really strategic about where we place different practices and ensuring that we have something that is maintainable, sustainable, and really benefits the community for the long run. So if we go to the next slide, here are just some of the different stormwater management strategies that we're starting to look through. So for example, green infrastructure and waterfront greenway along the bike corridor. So we're, as part of the master plan, aiming to pull that Manhattan Greenway a little bit further inland, help to separate bikes from pedestrians, and looking at how we can combine green infrastructure practices with that new greenway. We're also looking at permeable paving and storage tanks under the landscape, thinking about where we can start to retain and detain water in between those different pavers, and finding areas where we can possibly store stormwater under the landscape. We're also looking at water squares or surface level detention, and thinking about those heavier rainfall, like cloudburst type events, and where we can integrate these surface measures into the shoreline extension. We keep going. a few more, so just examples of green roofs. We are looking at the roofs of all of the different public buildings, ferry terminals, you name it, that are on the site to really understand those trade-offs and thinking about, can we do green programming, or what are the other uses that we may want to be accommodating on those sites. And then also rainwater storage for irrigation and building uses. So just a picture there of some of those tanks that could be located underground. They could be located within buildings. We could embed them in a raised landscape, and starting to think about how we integrate these types of infrastructure practices to benefit the site. We keep going. These are some example photos of these practices in the field. So there's a few different ones. Storm Tank, which has a shallow geogrid system. You have Storm Tech, which is shallow chamber collections, precast stormwater cisterns. All of these really just point to the different innovative measures that exist to help manage stormwater on site that you wouldn't even know are there because they're beneath any type of program. And these are the types of practices that we're looking to accomplish, or excuse me, accommodate into the site. And if we keep going, few more storage cross sections that you can start to see detention or rainwater harvesting in a stormwater cistern, thinking about soil cells and landscapes, and then also under linear tree plantings. And you can see those different stratas and those different filtration type technologies that we're looking to incorporate. We keep going. So that's what we're up to in the green infrastructure space. But I did want to briefly hit on parallel conveyance improvements, talk about what it is and how we've been looking at it across the site. So if we go to the next slide. So parallel conveyance is a term that refers to the management of stormwater. It helps to create a parallel pathway. And basically it gives additional redundancy for water to get to the interceptor. The best kind of simple way to think about it is that you now have in your bathtub another way in which water could drain and ultimately get out of from one pipe into another. And that's what the concept drawings on the right-hand side are trying to show, that in that existing system on the right hand, or excuse me, on the top, you can see that all of the water flows in that black line, that combined sewer inflow. It goes to the regulator and then it works its way to an interceptor. Whereas in a proposed system, you can see that we have that red line. That means that we have another way in which we can start to take water from that CSO, the combined sewer inflow pipe, and we can get it to that interceptor. And by getting water to these into these interceptor inputs more quickly, the goal is ultimately to reduce flooding that you may see on your street, just purely due to the limitations of the large interceptor pipe itself. So I know it's technical, but I figured it was helpful to just kind of talk through this concept in terms of what it is that we're trying to accomplish and why parallel conveyance ultimately frees up additional capacity for us to get water off of streets into an interceptor pipe, into a wastewater treatment plant sooner rather than later. If
this is all underground, right?
This is all underground. Yes. Thank you for clarifying. You would not even see this. You wouldn't know that it exists. But the pipes beneath the ground are working on your behalf to keep water off the streets. So I think there's one last slide if we keep going to 33. So as part of our work that we completed last year, we started to take a look at where parallel conveyance, so where these additional pipes could help to minimize flooding within our study area. And this was without coastal defense constructed. This was without future sea level rise, without a pump station in place. So we looked at one design storm condition where it was a non-hurricane type event, but it was a really heavy rainfall event. So it was the 100-year rainfall. It lasted for 3 hours. There was no surge. We used present day tides. And what we ultimately learned was that parallel conveyance, so adding in these additional pipes, could help with taking water that currently collects on the streets during heavy rainfall events, getting it off those streets and bringing it into the interceptor pipe and ultimately to be treated before it's discharged. And the Arcadis team worked with EDC and we put together a planning and design BRIC grant application. As part of FEMA's Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities program, they have grants that help with capital to construct projects, and they also have grants that help with advancing planning and design. And we applied and were selected for further study as part of a planning grant to help with furthering our understanding of how parallel conveyance can help with minimizing near-term flooding in our study area. So with that, I can pass it back, Alexis, to you if there's anything else that you want to build here. But just wanted to take everyone through a bit more of how we're thinking about stormwater management across the site. Thinking first about those green solutions, also though knowing we're going to need gray solutions to ultimately manage the heavy rainfalls that we've been seeing more and more across New York City.
Hear you guys. Cannot hear you.
This is great. I really appreciate all discussions about rainwater and flood.
Sorry, I still can't hear you.
So maybe everybody has to come up around here. Is that the way it has to work? Well, maybe this would happen on the one.
No, that doesn't work. Hold on.
Tammy well, Alice really low.
So I just wanted to ask the question, which I think this is wonderful with the redundancy, but are you gonna build the pipes for 4 inches of rain in an hour capacity? Because one of the things we learned at a previous presentation is that Manhattan's better than Queens, but you know, part of the problem is just our pipes are too small to handle 4 inches of rain in an hour. So are all the new pipes going in from here on out in this new section going to be bigger, or is that not engineering smart?
I will have Ronnie answer that. I will say, I mean, we are designing everything to a certain storm. So when you say 4 inches of rain in an hour, Ronnie, do you want to speak to
Sure.
the kind of the new capacity?
Yeah, and I will just say, so the work that we did at a very high level was enough to demonstrate that the concept of parallel conveyance works. That if you have a heavy rainfall, you can take water and you can get it off the streets and you can bring it into the interceptor to help minimize flooding. But we would work within existing DEP standards, most of which are designing pipes still to the 5-year rainfall event. And it would be to ultimately work with DEP on what we can construct. So as I know everyone is aware, the streets under the infrastructure under our streets is pretty complex, and we would need to make sure that we could site that infrastructure. We would need to think about how we would take water at those right moments from manholes from the combined sewer system and take it to the interceptor, and ultimately see what fits. But to clarify, no, and I apologize if that was misleading, by no means are we looking to now start designing pipes and infrastructure to the 100-year rainfall event. It would never fit within our city, the size of those pipes, things of that nature. And that's why we need to have a combined solution that's green and gray and helps to provide those green moments, where we can retain water, where we can bring it back into the soils and we can slow it down so that the system does have sufficient time to catch up.
Here's what's going to happen to the Ambrose, the ship.
Oh, and so as part of our maritime work, we are maintaining all the historical maritime uses that are there. Right now, we will need to elevate some of the pier facilities, in particular Pier 16 and 15. And we haven't decided kind of what the phasing of that is yet, but besides kind of minor temporary interruptions, perhaps in operations during construction, all current uses will be maintained there.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, I have a question. Well, Tammy, you wanted to go.
You go first, and then I'll go.
No, I just was curious, is there a plan? One of the things I'd hope to see, and I really can't thank you enough for having Jobin here. Yeah, it's nothing like plugging it in. Always miracles do happen. So in any case, Is there, can we go back to the first plan of this part of the presentation, which I think is the only plan where we just see the whole part where you show some of the interceptor and the manhole covers and such. Yeah, there it is, that one. So when you say that's the focus area, can you just expand on, I think people would be very interested, and I know we've talked about it before, is where will there be a pump house? Presumably there's certain things that will be above ground, like venting and pump house and interceptor, and are there buildings that are coming with this kind of storm management, or you're saying that nothing will be above the ground? Miracle, but I'm just curious. We're all going, if you sense, because I see on this plan, you know, there's blue boxes. that-
I'm gone again.
Okay, what do you got? Audio?
The audio's there.
Yeah.
Yes, okay, it's just the video that was lost.
So Ronnie, you got that question?
I believe the question was asking about what will be above ground versus what will be below ground.
Yeah, and that plan specifically, what it is we're looking at.
Sure. So what you see in those blue boxes are below grade infrastructure. So that's where you have manholes, which, you know, they're flat, you run over them, you bike over them all the time. And then the blue lines are pipes that would be below ground. And where you see that blue circle connecting into that blue box, that's a regulator chamber. And what that does is during rainfall events that are less than a certain threshold, it takes all of that water and it brings it to the wastewater treatment plant. But when you have more intense rainfall events, it redirects water to a combined sewer overflow and it helps to manage that system. But those are all those blue lines are effectively below ground. What you see in green, that's going to look like landscaping. And we're still working through the overall stormwater strategy right now. And that's why we don't have a bigger plan at this moment. We're right now working through and making sure that we have an integrated strategy that can help to manage the runoff, that works with the program, that works with the other uses, that meets all of the regulatory requirements. So it's fairly complex and we're working through it, and we will definitely come back in future meetings as we have more to take you all through the full plan. But I don't want you to think that we're solely bringing you a limited focus area at this moment.
Right, and I guess the question that's come up before that I think people have curiosity about is where the pump house would go, this actual, and will there only be one? Is it sort of built structure that goes along with this?
Yes. So if you see in the focus area box, there is and I apologize, I don't have an ability to hover my own mouse here, but perfect. I see someone does. If you see, there is a gray box right there. Perfect. That is right now one of the locations that we are holding for the pump station. So you can see in size and in scale, it is not terribly large. We have right now demonstrated a green roof on top of it. So that building would actually go a little bit further in width, but our hope is that it's really integrated into the program of the site because it is something that's only going to be used during extreme weather events. So we need to take the opportunity to, oh, perfect, we're zooming in. So we need to take that opportunity to think about the program that can be integrated so that it makes the best use of that site.
There'd be one pump house on the entire, I mean, not the focus area, but the entire site of the site.
The audio is breaking up a little, but I think the question is whether there's only one pump station. And yes, there's only one pump station for the entire site. And that's why also these parallel conveyance improvements that you won't see below ground are so important, because we have to pull water from both the north and the south in order to ultimately get it to that pump station during extreme weather events.
Lastly, what is the scale? I'm afraid I can't quite make it out, but of course the height we would know, but what is the sort of square footage of that and how high is it? Just curious.
Right now it's shown as 2 stories, and I apologize that I don't have the square footage off the top of my head. But I want to say it's about 2/3 smaller than the Manhattan pump station, just for size and scale. It's a much, much smaller facility that we're looking at than what is further north. And if we use some of the street widths for comparison, it's about half of a city block. Oh, the audio went out again, unfortunately.
Oh, I'm
No,
not sure
no.
what you're talking.
Now I can hear you. Sorry.
All right, what I wanted to ask is about the mayor just did a press announcement on Monday with these beautiful drawings of what potentially Pier 6 would look like with alternative forms of transportation plus car parks for the Blue Highway along Pier 6. It does not look reflective at all in the focus area that you have here. So I'm curious because his beautiful, I mean, we're super excited for anything that goes green, right? And anything that's less diesel. So all of that's really awesome. The alternative use for cargo bikes looked really intriguing. But there was also parking on the pier for trucks who cannot obviously do cargo bikes. And I don't see any of that. Now, I understand it's brand new, but I'm wondering how drastically that would change what we're looking at here in terms of not only the floodgate, but the piping, the park, the drainage, the elevation, the flow, everything that goes from Pier 6 kind of and around it.
And part of that presentation indicated that there was quite a bit of one of the wing of the pier, the L of the pier having batteries on it, quite a number of batteries. And so that too would be helpful to know how that gets integrated.
And it actually, I have to admit, looking at what they showed for Pier 6 does not match at all with the siting of where it is in this diagram. Because they showed access from both sides of Pier 6 all the way back to the landing. So it was far more L-shaped, more similar in line to the first discussion that we had on Pier 6.
Tammy, is Pier 6 the heliport? Yeah. So I can just say, so we've been coordinating very closely with our asset management group, who runs the, lease for that heliport. Met with them multiple times, obviously leading up to the announcement. What you saw, in that image was like, not a design. It was a highly kind of conceptual, illustrative example of how you might think about it. Ultimately, it will be with the vendor to actually propose a design for how they would accomplish battery storage or any other number of things. And it would be very closely coordinated. They would meet with our design team. They also are happening a little bit on different timeframes. So this current, RFP is gonna hopefully be implemented, selected and implemented in the next few years, way prior to our construction. That said, the two designs will need to work together. We wouldn't be kind of making investments and then ripping them up again. So it will be very closely coordinated. I wouldn't take that actual, it was meant to be more provocative, I would say, than an actual design.
Oh, it was definitely on the provocative side. But it also gave rise to the question of the siting on Pier 6. I know there's land use rules and zoning rules about how far it can move left, right, and center. So this Pier 6 looks to be having moved south to the versus what is in existence currently. So I'm curious in terms of, especially because you've got floodgate and drainage and everything else, where the leeway and accountability is on how far up or down Pier 6 can move, because this is significantly south of what's shown on the slide.
Yeah. So again, this will all be subject to kinds of permitting and regulators, but we have envisioned, since we are rebuilding Pier 6, that we will also be moving the footprint pretty substantially. There are design reasons for that. Among them are also kind of consolidating some of those uses in the southern portion to allow for more green and open space, as you see in that focus area, and kind of uninterrupted green open space. Since we were moving, we knew that we would have to rebuild it and move it anyway. In our longer term plan, we did move it pretty significantly. Ronnie, do you have any other, does that answer your question or?
it's a concern, I guess, for me, because we know that the Pier 6 RFP and potentially that will start long before this does.
Right, but that doesn't mean that it won't be coordinated, I guess is the answer. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, yes,
No,
you're
I
up.
was just trying to understand your rationale for choosing that as your focus area. What was the rationale?
It's Ronnie, do you want to describe the rationale for the focus area?
Sure. So we have 4 focus areas, and the first one is a bit further south, down by, say, Peter Minois Plaza, and it's green space that we're working to design right now. The second is where there are the ferry terminals, and our opportunities will be more limited to things like green roofs and on-site GI practices. We have this third focus area, which feels in a lot of ways like the simplest in terms of having a large green open space that we can work to program. And then we have the area further north, which is over by the Seaport Piers. But our goal starting here was because we felt like we could accomplish the greatest amount within the different practices. And thinking about really the relationship between stormwater management and landscaping. And now we can use that to further both the above ground and the below grade design of the rest of the shoreline extension. So our work to be done is first and foremost to finish our thoughts on this area and then start to test each of those areas before we bring them together as one cohesive and collective stormwater management strategy.
I must say, it's a good question, because it does, when you look at the plan close up like this, you realize you're wedged right there with your large green area into potentially environmentally questionable conditions. I mean, until such time as we have silent helicopters and electric ferries, you're kind of in the middle of diesel and noise that's pretty fierce. So that's a curious, it's a quality of life question, which I guess the thinking is that someday those won't be concerns. Is that the idea?
And hopefully sooner rather than later. Right.
Little like the jail having no people in it. Okay, let's throw that out there, sorry.
I just wanted to ask one more question before we go to anybody who has questions online. It does look in the focus area that there's been significant change also to the green space. Because it does look from what I'm seeing, that the green spaces, based on from what we were initially told, I see that there's a bump out, but sort of towards the north, it looks like there's been significant change. Will that be presented soon?
Yeah, so this is part of the design updates that were shown at the open house, and this plan itself isn't the best way to present kind of what the open spaces are. It has been refined since the master plan, and there are a few reasons for that refinement. Circulation has actually been improved. And so has access to the waterfront, which were 2 things that obviously are of critical importance to the community. So this does provide better pathways and getting to the waterfront. It was also refined based on city connections, right? So how you're actually connecting back to the Vietnam Veteran Memorial Plaza and/or Old Slip. And so this does represent a change, but these are the design updates that were shown as part of our open house work. And I think probably at a future quarterly meeting, we can come back just to speak specifically about the open space design and those changes from the master plan.
I think that would be a fantastic idea to have just a meeting on open space, because at this point, I think people would be really, really ready for that. With the confidence that all that's being done, that can be done towards resiliency, but that's a critical issue. So we'll take you up on that offer, right?
And a good explanation about, because what I see from Pier 6, it has hopped around a lot, shape, size, and location, and it's of all of, I can't imagine a larger hot button. Stop the chop. That's all I'm gonna say, just one line. And I don't know an elected official who doesn't want something. So understanding exactly where that's sitting, how it is in relation to the green space and how it will transportation wise be able to function, because and where it links in is really important based on the potential that we have seen with the extension of the Battery Park underpass top. So moving Pier 6 south, potentially maybe cutting it off from access to being able to get those trucks off the pier and onto highway or off our local roads, was always the major goal. So.
And that
just
remains we can come back and speak to this as well, but kind of this was an optimization of the design to make sure that there was vehicular access that wasn't interrupting kind of smooth pedestrian experience and that those.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay.
Okay, any other questions? Anybody in the?
Justine had her hand up online.
Okay, Justine.
So much. Thanks, guys. So I want to go back to that above ground 2-story city block pump house. Is that the right way to phrase it?
Yeah.
Okay, so that needs to be there to get rid of the water that's accumulated and you're going to get it from everyplace else. That's really huge. How are you going to fit that into the design, if at all?
I guess I do want to address that, and I know Ronnie will give a maybe more diplomatic and eloquent answer.
No, that's right.
I think it is critical, and I think, that is something that is required for this overall system to work. So without it, water accumulates on the interior, kind of like a bathtub. And, we would not get our FEMA accreditation. We would not make folks safer. So yes, it is a significant structure, but it is necessary to the functioning of this effort. We do have the benefit because we have effectively new land to design it in a way that it doesn't feel like a kind of a massive structure, and there are ways to embed it within the landscape. And I will let Ronnie give the more nuanced answer onto how she's thinking through that.
And I think Jordan, perfect overview. And just to say that because we have an opportunity here, knowing that we do need to create new infrastructure, and we do get to plan with that in mind. The design team has been working really closely with the engineers to figure out how best to integrate that into the landscape, whether that's thinking about how we program green roofs, or maybe there's an opportunity to have windows looking into a pump station for educational opportunities as you're walking on the top level of that path. Our goal is to really think about how we make it an asset, how we think about making it a part of the story of the shoreline extension, but then also ensuring that we're programming it in smart ways so that it's providing value to the community, even during the hopefully 99.9% of the time when it's sunny or when it's just lightly raining and we need to have open space. But I think Jordan said it perfectly, that this system does not function without this pump station, and it's a critical component of how we will ultimately achieve flood defense.
Makes sense. Thank you. So follow-up question, and I think your answer is just going to be, yeah, that's right. I was going to ask you, when you were talking about the planning for pumping water out, planning to the 5-year rain event, not the 100-year rain event. I'm going to imagine that any kind of pump house that would be planning for a larger rain event would only have to be that much bigger. Is that correct?
Correct. But pump stations are designed differently than your normal drainage system is. And I will spare everyone the details of pump stations tonight, but only to say that they are designed exactly to do what you just described, to take that water out during the emergency conditions, to use heavy infrastructure to help get water back to the East River and to get it off of streets and out of homes and things of that sort.
Okay, that makes sense. And last question that I don't think is going to get answered now, but Gwen, write this down, because when it's your turn, my question is going to be, the pump station that the Battery Park City Authority has to build in the North neighborhood is not that big, right? And you don't have to answer me now, but I don't believe it's that big. I know you're building it up by Stuyvesant, but I don't believe it's that big.
Okay, Jeff, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I'm not going to have her. I'm not asking.
Thank you. Jen, go ahead, and I'm letting committee members go first.
So following up on Justine's point, you're probably aware of the Northwest Project Battery Park City pump house is completely underground. And as I understand it, sounds like it's performing the same function, although I don't know that to be the case. As I understood their description of its function would be in the in the storm event, it would pump water back out into the Hudson River. Two questions. One is, why can that one be underground and this one cannot be? And second question, are in fact the pumps doing the same thing? It's just pumping the water into the East River, overcoming the storm surge.
I guess, in terms of the design and elements above and below ground, yeah, I think that let's have BPCA speak to it. But I think, a lot of this relates to the relation to the kind of broader project area and where it falls within the interceptor. The pump station for Fidei Seaport is solving for a dramatically larger geography, kind of even up to the kind of areas closer to BMCR, and portions within actually Battery Park City's jurisdiction. So that is, where it falls between the interceptor and when the water eventually goes to the Manhattan pump station. So we are at a kind of a unique area where we can solve for a larger geography than just our project. That is, PBC doesn't have that opportunity because it kind of falls at the end of the line, if you will. It's all being designed in coordination. But I think, to the point of what it looks like, let's raise that again when BPCA goes.
Okay, good. That was a good question. Okay, Rosa Chen.
Yes.
Hello. Thank you very much. I'm trying to turn my camera on, but for some reason it won't let me. Oh, wait. Okay, I am on. Okay, hi. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed this presentation. So, and I think it's all of us resiliency geeks just love learning about all these new things. I was especially excited about this shallow grid system of storage tanks. I thought that was really cool, and I hope that we get to see and utilize lots of that in the city. Since we don't have much depth we can work with, especially with all of the utilities that we have in conflict. Quick question. I was wondering, following up on Wendy's question regarding the combined sewer overflows and the capacity of those systems. So am I correct in that we currently have capacity for about 1.75 inches of stormwater, like rainwater, and we're actually hoping to get more? And so I was wondering, in the new systems that you were talking about, are we getting any increase in capacity, or is it still the same 1.75?
Ronnie, it's a question for you. And Rosa, I'm very impressed that you know the current capacity.
We're geeky at CV1. And thank you so much, by the way, for tabling. I was so excited to have you guys there. I was a little sad that we couldn't get those enormous one-to-one posters, because I thought, especially for the people in the, exactly as what Wendy's saying, the people in the community who might not be as geeky as us when it comes to these kinds of things, when you see something that's at one-to-one scale, it has such a dramatic impact, and it's also just fun. So I do hope you will be able to post them on site somewhere. And I actually hope you'll be able to post those, all the different sewer systems or the flooding systems on signage around the site. I think that would be really exciting for the community to see the different options that are available and what's going to be integrated under their feet.
Ronnie, are you able to answer the question addressing capacity? How we could
I was going to ask, so my audio cut out there. The last part that I heard was asking about pump station sizes. But if you can repeat the question, I would be happy to answer in terms of capacity.
Oh, sure. So my understanding was that our current compliant sewer overflow system is able to take about 1.75 inches of rainwater per hour. And in prior times when we have flooded, it has been like 3 inches or whatever, and that's been the reason why, because the system just got backed up. And so I was wondering, in the areas where you said that you were going to be installing new systems, I know Wendy had referred to 4 inches, but which you said we were not going to get, but are we having any increase in capacity, or is it remaining at 1.75?
So to separate things a little bit, so the 1.75 that you're thinking of, great memory, that is when we trigger a combined sewer overflow event.
Yeah.
So that's the amount in terms of when the water can no longer make its way to the Newtown Creek wastewater treatment plant, and we just start to see the water go directly into the East River for discharge in the study area. When we're designing, though, our pipes, they are designed to a larger number than that. And I can look up specifically and get back to you what exactly that 5-year threshold would be, but it is more than that 1.75 inches per hour. And it's only when that combined sewer overflow event is triggered as that you use that number.
Right.
But most of the time it is that 5-year 24-hour rainfall event, if I recall correctly, and I need to just look that up and pull for you exactly what that would be in terms of inches per hour.
Because I feel like we've already had a couple of those events just this year. So it's becoming more and more common. And that means, bad things are going into the East River.
100%. And that's exactly a water quality issue, and something that I'm sure and Jordan, I'll pass it back to you on this one, but I'm sure something that hasn't gone unnoticed, and something that certainly is part of why we're trying to manage as much of that rainwater on site, so that it can be pre-treated or absorbed back into the soils, at least for the FiDi Seaport project.
Okay, thank you. Oh, Jordan, we can't hear you.
Come to the table.
Just yell into this thing. Hello. No, I think it's really about utilizing all the different strategies we have available. I think, you know, one of the images that we showed was the kind of depressed plaza, the kind of above ground storage. So effectively what you're doing is during those intense events, you were able to store the water while the kind of interceptor is given time to the water out to the Manhattan pump station. So it's the pump station, it's kind of a larger interceptor, kind of, supporting the interceptor, and it's that above ground detention and retention. So it's that's exactly the sort of thing we're thinking through right now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Michelle, so I
Michelle.
wonder, Michelle
And then Trevor.
Michelle Ashkin. Thanks for your patience, Michelle. We lost her.
Problem. This is a fascinating conversation and a wonderful presentation. So thank you for taking the time to do this. So I actually, one of the questions that I was going to ask was just covered with Rose's question about the combined sewer overflow, because we know what a nightmare that can be. And so my question was really basically about, wouldn't the parallel conveyance system manage that in a better way? And so we kind of covered that, but it is a concern, I'm sure, to everyone. And so I'm sure you're going to do whatever you can to find innovative ways to, as best possible, prevent that from happening. But my other question, so thank you for taking the time to answer that, because it's been something that, we've in New York have been concerned about for many, many years. But I do have a different question about the extended shoreline, which sounds really interesting and wonderful, the having this green infrastructure. But my question specifically about that is, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My question specifically about that is the slope of the shoreline going to extend all the way into the river, or as in like a natural wetland would, or is there going to be some sort of a wall that cuts off where that ends and the river begins? Does that make sense? My question?
Yes, somebody We heard you, and yes, it makes sense. I'm just gonna answer.
Yeah, I'm trying to think because I'm interpreting it a few ways. So we will be going out into the water. In some instances, about kind of 190 feet at the greatest extent from the current like bulkhead. It will not all be what you would imagine as kind of like a solid filling of the water. There will be portions, large portions of solid fill, but then we will also have over water platforms. And it will be a combination of both of those. The other part of the question was, will there be a wall?
Well, let me give it some context.
Yeah.
Those people who know me know that I am the voice of wildlife in this city. And so when I ask a question like that, it's usually around something having to do with wildlife. And so I love the idea of the extended shoreline and the greenery and you know all the wonderful effects that has in terms of filtration and cleansing and water retention and all that. But I also do know that there is a very large population of water birds, right? We have geese and we have different species of ducks, and they need nesting areas. And so I know that where there's a wall that's, and I know that the ducklings and the goslings, and they need to be able to come in and out of the water, otherwise they won't survive in the depths of the Hudson or the East River. So I'm just wondering if there's any kind of a egress or into the water that might be good for wildfowl.
Mhm. Yeah, so in this level of design that we have right now, I can say that like we are considering all of those habitats, both kind of the existing, right, wildlife and in-water habitats, and making sure that we're designing it in order to kind of accommodate both existing and perhaps potential new. We've talked a lot about like creating additional pollinator habitat. There will be opportunities to get down to the water, especially at the lower edge, which will be that is an elevation that's protecting against sea level rise. So it is lower than the elevation. The closest to the water will protect against sea level rise. So it is lower than the elevation of the actual flood wall, but then it will have to go up significantly to about an elevation of 23 feet in order to protect against the types of storms that we are planning to protect against, which is 2100, 100-year storm. I can get.
I'd just like to bring that up as something to consider, as wildlife is losing its wetlands, as you well know, and we're doing a lot of the hard infrastructure, which is a problem for them. And so, if and where you can, I'm glad to hear you considering that.
Absolutely.
And just to build there too, two pieces from our sustainability work. One, we are going to be revisiting those in-water aquatic opportunities. During the prior phase of the master plan, we conducted 2 years of aquatic habitat and sampling, really just to understand what uses the East River, what lives there today, and what species we may be able to help to provide habitat for. And especially in the area closest to, say, the Brooklyn Bridge Beach. That's where we're looking to see where we have those ecological opportunities, where the tides and the wakes from the boats aren't splashing water left and right, but where if we were to create habitat, it actually has a fighting chance of surviving. So we are really using those site conditions to think about what we can do. And then as we continue to advance our program in the open space design, we are very much committed to thinking about terrestrial habitat, thinking about the birds and the different species that live on the site, but then also that may pass through the site. And it's work and a great comment that you're making here that we will definitely continue to be advancing, because biodiversity is so critical, and it's an opportunity for us to really be thinking both about the humans as well as the animals that would use this site.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, last question from Trevor Holland. Hey, Trevor, welcome.
Hey, how you doing? And thank you for the presentation. I certainly learned a little bit more about what's going on. So I'm going to be quick. There's been a lot of confusion about rainwater and stormwater management as opposed to coastal resiliency. So it was interesting to see this particular presentation. So my first question, because you mentioned cohesive and collective, is will this particular project, which has stormwater management goals, will it be consistent with every LMCR, BMCR, BPCR project? Or will one project have more rainwater capacity than the other?
So I think, one important element, and this is specifically on the coastal piece that has come up, is that because the potential lifespan of the asset is longer, effectively there's new land being created. We are looking at a 100-year storm in the year 2100 as our coastal protection design criteria. That is compared to a 100-year storm in 2050 for the other projects. So as an example, obviously the gates in BMCR, and we'll get into that, their lifespan is not going to be 150 years, likely between 75 or 100 years. And so you don't necessarily have to design as extreme as you might for, once again, new land. So that's an important distinction. I think it is a much more complicated piece on stormwater. Kind of as discussed, it all relates to relationship along the big U of the interceptor and what you're able to do. But I will say that the pump station is looking at benefits not just to BPCA, not just to the Seaport area, not just to FIDI, but long-term benefits to the BMCR area as well. So I think incomplete answer to your question, but I think we are in the kind of the progress of figuring out, what are all the stormwater benefits. And the stormwater benefits much more challenging because a lot of the work is site by site. It is not, something that you solve all in one area like the coast. Obviously, as part of the BMCR project, we built 2 trustworthy public land playgrounds there. They, helping to solve some of the stormwater issues. There's a number of just parallel conveyance built into the BMCR project that helps in certain stormwater situations as well. So it is all part of the what we're looking at.
Could you clarify that that's where it goes to Brooklyn? Because I think that's the thing.
Yes. So as I was describing before, the interceptor, where it kind of falls across the project area. Once in those kind of larger events, water moves up the east side out to the Manhattan pump station, and then is shuttled under the East River to Brooklyn to the Newtown Creek wastewater treatment plant.
Okay, I'll save my follow-up on that for another time because I didn't really hear whether they're all coordinated. So I'm going to take it as they're probably not. But I'll follow up that on a different.
I would say to clarify, yes, they are all coordinated, and they will continue to be even more closely coordinated with the consolidation of this work at DEP. So
I was talking more about the consistency in the stormwater management numbers. That's all. Not so much the coordination, but those numbers. Is every section of all of your coastal resiliency projects going to have 5 inch or 7 inch? That's why I said I'll follow up. We didn't want to get into that at this point. There was a slide that talked about FDR runoff, which is very important. I know we had looked at that before for other projects, and we were told that was impractical. So I'm curious as to what you're looking at in terms of managing the water that comes off the FDR or actually goes through and underneath the FDR.
And I'm going to tag on to where Trevor was going, because that was going to be my next question was, have you studied the work, because BMCR is ahead of us, any of the rainwater and the runoff, because the FDR is elevated from Brooklyn Bridge North to apply to Brooklyn Bridge South, and how are those two related, and what are we doing that matches in that?
So I guess let's start with Ronnie.
Yeah, Ronnie can kind of, yeah.
Sure. Yeah, so 2 pieces here. So first, just quickly to Trevor's question on the drainage pieces all being coordinated. Agree, there's probably a good follow-up needed, but I do just want to say that from a coastal defense standpoint, FEMA and these projects that are getting FEMA accreditation does have guidelines in terms of how much water is allowed to pond or collect onto our streets and roadways in order for them to pursue accreditation. And from a design standpoint, yes, all of these projects are coordinated to that same ponding level and will all have, I want to say It's certainly less than a foot of ponding. And I think most projects, we've been looking to have much less than that. So I know that's not exactly the question, but I did just want to point out from the coastal defense standpoint and how the interior drainage piece is interconnected. From the FDR question, our goal right now is to look at those downspouts. So the water that runs off of the FDR drive that collects and that you see kind of emptying out sometimes into the into the okay, great. So what we're trying to do is figure out, can we redirect those downspouts, and can we take that water that right now ends up in the combined sewer system and instead route it to a bioswale, or can we route it to some green infrastructure practice so that it either is filtered and then it enters into that separate storm sewer system, or can it just simply be retained and get absorbed into the soils? I don't want anyone to get too excited yet. It's something we are studying. It's something that we think has promise, at least in select locations around the study area where the grade is in our favor. But it's something that we recognize as stormwater that's entering a sewer system that doesn't need to be. So how can we redirect that?
Okay, thank you.
Great. Okay, so do you have any more of the presentation? You did have.
Yes, there's 3 more presentations.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, I know there's Battery Park City, but you're not including that.
Well, there are shorter presentations. I did bring my sleeping bag though. So there's a very brief Seaport coastal resilience, and there's a BMCR presentation. I think that's up next.
Okay, so let's. Great. Okay, so introduce yourself again and welcome. Thank you. And thank you, everyone, for the usual marathon sessions.
This is awesome.
We love it. Yeah.
Mike is in front of you. Please don't pull on the black ones.
I have one.
great. I will not.
Get started. One question to you. How many acres are we talking about for the Finite Seaport Master Plan?
I think it is in the 10-acre range, maybe the touch below, maybe 9 to 11. Does that sound right?
Around 10 acres. Okay.
A little bit.
Great. I was just curious. I'll follow up with that later. Okay, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. I'm Mark McClure. I work under the Program Management Construction Management Joint Venture for the East Side Coastal Resiliency Project. I'm representing them as well as DEC. I do community engagement for ESCR as well as the Brooklyn Bridge Montgomery Coastal Resilience Project, which is under the LMCR, as I'm sure you're all aware. Go to the next slide. So this is just overview of what I'm going to touch on tonight. It's just project status, some new construction photos, what the upcoming activities are, and then I have a list of resources. And I know we're just outside, or sort of, we just touched CB1, so I'll be brief. So this is a map of the project area in the bottom right. As you can see, it goes between the Brooklyn Bridge and Montgomery Street, hence the name. We have been doing, up until this point, focusing on distribution water main work. So that's replacing the 100-year-old 12-inch distribution water main, which is what connects from the trunk main to your buildings. We're 70% complete with that work. Utility relocation and upgrades. So as the other projects we're mentioning, there's a parallel conveyance component to this project. And in order to get down to those sewers, we have to relocate all the utilities out of the way. And when we're relocating them, we also upgrade them. Flood wall construction has started because while most of this project is a series of flip up floodgates, which I'm sure you've all seen the renderings of, there is at this north end and south end of the project actual physical flood wall, which I have a rendering on both sides. Micropile installation is like the installation of piles that will support the flood protection system. And we just started doing seepage barrier installation, which is to prevent water from coming under the flood wall. And soon we will be constructing an interceptor gate building, which I also have a rendering of. So these are some construction photos. The image on the left is the micro pile installation. So because the FDR is above the project area, they can't do typical pile driving where they hammer piles into the ground with like a large a machine that you may have seen if you go to like near East River Park. It's just like a really tall like hammer essentially that drives them into the ground. So they use micropiles and they drill them into the ground. And then you can see there's water to make sure that there's not a lot of dust being created as they're doing this. And then the one on the right is a gas main installation. So they were relocating the gas main from the street into the sidewalk. Maybe go to the next slide. So the newest activity we have so far, which is sort of the last work zone expansion we're doing, is that they are expanding the work zone under the FDR, so that they, like, between what it would be Johnson, but it's Johnson there, it's just a sidewalk, and then Montgomery, to build this flood wall that you see on the left. This will replace the fence that currently goes along the sidewalk at the FDNY, DSNY, NYPD facilities up to Pier 36. And so this, we did have to close the bike lane there and the sidewalk, which usually had cars parked on it anyway from the FDNY and DSNY facilities, but in the future, there will be these sort of built environment pieces that also try and deter people from parking on the sidewalk.
What's the picture of is that a car or a parked vehicle that's on the water side of the wall?
So that's a, I believe would be the DSNY or FDNY. They have a parking lot. So there's the big, DSNY has a collection facility where the trucks go to bring all of the waste that's been collected. And then in the middle of that is an FDNY facility, which has a couple of, it's mostly EMS. So they have ambulances, but we've been coordinating with them also to figure out where we're taking some of their parking lot away. So we've had to coordinate with them to make sure that they can reallocate those vehicles to other places so that it doesn't interrupt their operations at all. But that would be like I believe a personal vehicle, because they have parking space in front of their buildings where they have personal vehicles. Yeah.
Would love them not to be in places that we could get land back, or on the local streets.
Yeah.
Because that is the greatest issues that we have in Community Board 1. So any more vehicles that you push onto the streets that are placards and agency, it's just more congestion.
Yeah, the DSNY is, I believe, moving some of their operations to another location completely. They're still working out the details of that. But we have told them, they're well aware that we don't want them parking on local streets. That was brought up at C3 as well. Okay. And so then this is a rendering of, we just took or expanded the construction zone mostly in the DOT yard that's right there under the Brooklyn Bridge. So this is the Interceptor Gate building. This building, when it's completed, will be managed by the Department of Environmental Protection. It houses the controls for the parallel conveyance system that's associated with BMCR. So it both has the controls and then also provides access to DEP workers to go down and inspect the Interceptor Gate and the chamber.
Is that the orange part that we're looking at?
So the orange part on that map, it's just that small, like 200 feet of Robert F. Wagner Senior Place. That's north of the bridge at South Street. And so now that we've taken these two areas, all of the construction zone essentially is either within those fenced areas or in the street, because we have to do a lot of utility work and the utilities are under South Street.
What are the two white, I'm sorry, I see the Interceptor Gate building.
Yep.
Right, but what are the two white?
Those are already existing. Those are the trailers that DOT works in that location. Yeah.
Next slide.
Yep. And then this is the last slide. So there's a link to our website. It's nyc.gov/BMCR. Our community construction liaison, who I believe is on virtually, is Marcia Guido. I know she's worked on other projects inside of CB1. So someone who's familiar with her. There's her contact information. You can reach out to her anytime if you have questions or concerns. I also brought some of my business cards if anyone would like them. We do tabling events. along, both along South Street, but also in the, within two bridges to try and reach people and answer questions they might have. And then we present at every other CB3 Parks meeting, which is all usually on the second Thursday of any month. So we just were there this month, so we'll be back in January, barring any exceptional circumstance. And then we have some on-site signage with wayfinding, wayfind, as well as community construction advisories, which just notify people of upcoming construction impacts, like the ones that I had shown in with the renderings. And we just launched an inquiry tool, so if you have questions or concerns about something on site, you can submit it to our inquiry tool and then sign up for our weekly emails, which come out on Fridays.
Thanks very much. And
Would you say for the record, the inquiry tool so people can look, because I see it right here.
Yes, so the inquiry tool is if you go to nyc.gov/BMCR, visit our contact page, it's there. You can either just sign up to receive emails because we send them through that same system. It's similar to the one we use for the East Side Coastal Resiliency Project, if anyone's on that list. And when you're filing an inquiry, you can also geolocate where your question is, if it has a location, so.
okay, we're gonna have to move things along because it is getting really late and we have a lot to cover. So I'm gonna ask that the questions are really, specific, not repetitive. And the one question I'd like to just launch out with, just the obvious question that'll be asked all the time at this board, is how these two projects are interfacing at that juncture at the Brooklyn Bridge, Gotham Park. Have you answered the community's concerns and suggestions by folks from Gotham Park, like Rosa Chang, in terms of what is the next step? Have you been able to accommodate some of the concerns that this community board has at that spot? And if you want to let us know what it's going to look like, it would be a good time to do it probably.
So, I think that rendering does give a sense, where the projects meet up, at least from the BMCR side for folks.
The one with the interceptor gate?
The interceptor gate, I think the projects are designed to be independent. So each comes online, they serve a purpose. That means they will all have tiebacks. And so that includes the effort here. It's a little bit harder to see the staking of the flood wall, but it goes. Can you explain?
Yeah. So on the other side of that off ramp for the FDR, there's we call it Robert F. Wagner Senior Place Eastbound because the block doesn't really have a name. It's sort of part of the off ramp for the Brooklyn Bridge, but it's between Pearl and South Street. And so the flip up gates will be under the FDR, then they will cross South Street. So there will be some flip up gates in South Street and then a physical flood wall. And I can send you a rendering of this afterwards. I have some of that side. And the wall goes up until the elevation reaches the height of the flood wall. So it completely, it ties into like it ends up tying into the FDR off ramp that you can see here.
I'm going to just go out of turn if no one on the committee minds to our other board member, Rosa Chang, who's very, very committed to
I
this.
do want to maybe preempt Rosa's question. But I will allow her to get, so the placement of that interceptor gate, the kind of rationale is proximity to the interceptor. So looking at the kind of different opportunities available to us is within the DOT yard, within the Green Street, which you can't see right here, but is kind of beyond the NYCHA building, or on the Esplanade itself. So this was by far the best option available to us. It was within kind of the publicly accessible, not publicly accessible, but used by DOT. So it's probably the hardest internally for me to sell because I was taking space away from DOT, but by far the best from a public realm perspective. I know I've talked to Rosa many times about her desire to utilize this space. I think there will be plenty of opportunities for future conversations as her work progresses. I think we can all understand that is, in its current form, the highest and best use. There are some very serious, in terms of keeping the Brooklyn Bridge in good condition, in terms of accessing the interceptor gate. There's kind of very core functions for the city there. And so there will be a balancing act in the future. And I look forward to those conversations, whatever form they may take.
You're a genius. That's very well, even before Rose asked her question. So go ahead. Go ahead, Rosa.
Two things. Number one, the swimming pool that could be right there at that site so that you obscure the 10-foot tall concrete wall, which is not shown in this rendering, which is to the right of those yellow DOT parked trucks. I'm still working on that. And so, and I won't stop, you know, I'm very, let's see the word, tenacious. So we would love to have a swimming pool in this neighborhood. We don't have one. We think that it makes a lot of sense to utilize this location to obscure that 10-foot tall concrete wall. I'm not going to say anything about the interceptor location so long as we get the swimming pool. So if we could call that a compromise, I think that would be absolutely lovely. And then the second thing that I was wondering about was when Tammy mentioned parking for all these agency vehicles, I think it would be really great if we could look at something I brought up before, which is on one of your prior drawings, you showed that there's going to be a 24-foot rise. And some of that above the caissons. So I was wondering if inland from the caissons, you could actually integrate some parking underground rather than having to do the clean fill up top all the way to 24 feet or you know, some version thereof, and actually have these agency vehicles parked underneath these newly created berms, and then we can get them off of our streets.
Do you want to respond to that as a definitive yes, I hope?
Probably not a definitive yes, but I will say the comment is noted, and we will continue to have energetic conversations. Rosa.
It's actually not even just Rosa. If you remember, these conversations came up at CCLM years ago. So this is, you know, this, no offense intended to Rosa, but these conversations about that exact thing predate long before we got the alphabet soup of stuff happening, before one shovel even went in the ground.
Okay, any other questions? Joel?
Very quick. The bike routes, do you know how long they're gonna be closed for?
So likely until the project reaches substantial completion in by the end of 2026. We are currently the bike route is closed between Johnson and Montgomery, but it's still a shared pedestrian bike path along the waterfront from Pier 35 down to the bridge. We are working with DOT to potentially move the bike lane completely off the project because it's becoming infeasible and unsafe, especially when they need to coordinate with the Brooklyn Bridge Esplanade project, which is a separate project, like it's right along the bulkhead, which is like the water's edge, to repair the bulkhead that EDC is doing. And so like the two projects working right next to each other is going to make it impossible to have the bikes continuing through there in a shared path. So we'll probably, once we determine the route, we'll release community advisories, give a lot of notice and everything.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, great. And anybody coming from the outside?
There's a question online from one of the attendees, and it's asking, how are any of these being coordinated with the proposed congestion pricing?
Coordinated. So the proposed, we know what is the congestion pricing is being proposed, but the proposal that for congestion pricing, is that what it's doing?
Well, I think the answer is yes, you're looking at congestion pricing. I think we can't take on congestion pricing at 825. It's,
yeah.
So I'm going to make an executive move here and say, we've asked and answered. I'm sorry to the person who asked it who remains nameless. Okay, any other questions, Tammy? Anybody else up here? And I didn't mean to be, that's an important point, but it's a big one. It sounds like it's a yes, you're working with knowledge of congestion
We're
pricing
thinking about
that.
the impacts of congestion pricing.
Who is it? Okay, so last up, no, we have
Yes,
one more.
we have a presentation that I believe Andrew is on the line.
Thank you.
It's gonna be Kathleen now, I think.
Thanks very
For
much.
coastal resiliency.
Thank you.
Kathleen?
Hi, can everyone hear me? Hello? Yes?
We can hear you.
Great, perfect. So we have some good update on the Seaport Coastal Resiliency. I know we've been presenting this project to you the last few times, and that we were in the design procurement phase. And we're happy to report that we're very much at the end of that phase. We have selected a consultant and we're right now just finalizing the contract with them. So I think you know this project pretty well. The Seaport Coastal Resiliency is to address sea level rise and the drainage risks because it is the lowest lying area in Lower Manhattan. It's also to improve the waterfront. The intent is to connect back to the BMCR project and all the way up through Imagination Playground. Because it is the lowest area in the Seaport area, is the lowest area in Lower Manhattan. We do have a BRIC grant. We have talked about that before. We have been working with them to finalize the agreement with this grant, and I think we're very much in that process. I think we're almost done with that. So we're happy to say that once we get the consultant on board, which is probably by the beginning of the year, that we can actually really start to talk to them about this project and really start to get into the design of this resiliency project. That's really kind of it. So we look forward to actually engaging with you once we get this consultant on board. Formally on board.
Any questions? Okay. All right. Thank you so much to the Lower Manhattan Coastal Resiliency Team. Are you all leaving? Are you staying for the Battery Park City Authority?
EDC folks will be leaving. We'll leave it to our friends at the authority.
Okay, thank you so much. It was really, as always, edifying and tremendously generous in time. So, you know, we'll have follow-up. I think it would be great to get a meeting on open space and like we talked about, and the battery, yeah. Okay, so thank you all. Jordan, and
Thanks everybody for coming.
you.
We really appreciate it.
really
And it actually, I have to particularly say thank you for coming in person. It is, even with the technical, it's far more robust and is actually far more edifying. I find having you in the room. So thank you.
And also thank you for having that, the meeting beforehand where we get to ask certain questions that you then really did drill down, and I really appreciate it. It's real, I think it's really helpful. So. Which this is all. Okay, thanks again. Okay. here we go.
So we have Gwen Glosson online. I believe we have Peter Gloss online. We have Kimberly and Dan in the room, correct?
Yes.
Great.
I think Garrett is also online.
Yeah. Yes, yes.
Also the Battery Park City Authority team, who's picking this off.
Hey there, Alex. It's Nick Spordone. Good evening.
Hey, Nick, I'm gonna ask you a huge favor.
Yes.
We know this crowd and we know you, and the public probably knows a lot here too. So let's just move along as quickly as we can and kind of go to things we haven't seen or heard about as much as you can do.
Yes,
Okay?
for sure.
But
And thank you all for having us. I know it's a long night. So you went into it
sorry,
quickly.
Yeah.
It's okay. Can you hear me?
Yep, perfect.
So Kimberly Saul from our real property team and Dan Dixon are there with you in person. We have on the line Gwen Dawson and Peter Gloss from Arcadis are online as well. So with that, I will turn it over to Kimberly, and she will walk through our update there, and then open it up when she goes through. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Nick, and thanks, Kimberly. Take it
Sure.
away.
Okay, so next slide, and we can move through this very quickly. So this is just to say that we are under construction right now with phase one, which is Wagner Park, our site pavilion, Wagner Park site, and our pavilion project is under construction, and phase two is also under construction, which is Pier A, the battery and the interior drainage portion. And we expect this is still on target for early to mid 2025. Next slide. So the foundation construction of the new pavilion in Wagner Park is in progress. We have good news that we've completed the installation of the cistern and backfilling in Wagner Park. So you can see the lower left-hand photo is the cistern
How big is that?
arrived.
Always wanted to know.
Oh, gosh.
Oh,
Do you remember?
someone
Please
quoted
get
the
back
number
to
of
us.
gallons. I want to
Yeah.
say
How many gallons?
it was some millions of gallons. I
Millions.
forget.
Yes.
Just get that.
Sure,
fast.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
And can you put a sign up that it's coming? Nobody knows about it.
Yeah,
No, they
that's a good
know.
point.
All right, yeah, good. I
Go.
agree with Wendy, when people don't know, but they'll, go ahead. We'll do all that
Sure.
after.
The installation of soil anchors for the new pile flood walls is complete. The performance of the test pits and new utility installation on the first place is ongoing. We're in the middle of doing all that still. Tree pruning is complete. And then the performance of test pits within the construction fence is ongoing, continuing that work. And then I'll just point out that the lower right-hand photo is some of the foundation work for the pavilion building. So we've already started on that.
Where are the sheet pile flood walls anchors? Is that, no picture of that. Okay.
Yeah, we didn't include
Okay.
the photo. We have lots of constructed photos if you would like to see them. And
Yes.
We love
With
lot of
with-
photos.
yeah,
Yes.
with what we're looking at. Yeah.
I think there's that video too on the
Yeah.
website.
Yeah.
So that was fast. That's the whole south. Okay.
that's the stuff. And so just questions, if anyone has questions, you can contact Rick Fogarty, and his email is here. Do you need me to read it out loud or? is this
No,
okay?
we know.
Okay, good.
We
Just
know.
want to
I
make sure.
think I would just say maybe we could all just ask any questions we have, because it was very short on the south battery. If anybody has, like, I'd like to know how many trees were removed.
Nick, do you have that number? Because
Okay, you can get back to us.
Yeah.
And gallons in the cistern.
Yeah.
Okay, and then can you just describe a little what's going on at Pier A exactly and where you're at in the process? It was a little unclear what's going on in that plaza in front. That's one of the most acute areas of, flooding that happened during Sandy. So just curious where you are in the process and what's being done now.
So to my knowledge, the trees that needed to be removed have been removed and the fence is up along the battery.
Yeah.
And test pits are being
Yeah. Is your
undertaken.
question though?
This is the Pier A plaza we're talking about? There were
What does the test pit mean exactly?
Test pits is when you have to dig into the
Hey,
ground
Dan?
to see what.
Hello?
Go
Can you
ahead.
hear me? This
Gwen.
is Gwen. No, I just wanted to point out that Yves Vivi, who's the project manager for the South project, is on the line. He can tell you where we are with the work. So I think just started.
What's his name? Gwen?
Eves.
Yep. All right, let me promote him to a panelist. He can unmute himself now.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear.
Yep, we can hear you.
Great, thank you. So the Pier A work is joined up with the work that's being performed in the battery, as Dan mentioned before. We've had the entire perimeter fence installed. In terms of the plaza itself, we have not done any work in plaza itself. We are preparing to do removals, but right now only the trees along the edge of the plaza have been removed.
When will the plaza work begin, you think?
Probably not until early next year.
A couple months, okay. Thanks.
No
So,
problem.
anybody about the South Battery? Tammy?
So if the work on the front of Pier A Plaza will not be done until early next year, is there a way to have temporary pathways be able to be opened to facilitate a better pedestrian way in between the north side entering the park?
Hey, this is Gwen again. We've looked at that in several times, and we've not been able to arrive at a safe way to create a pedestrian access point to the park from that side. In addition, there will be several projects happening at Pier A. We're doing some restoration and capital repair work at Pier A over the next year or so, and so there's a lot of things happening in the area at or adjacent to Pier A, and there's just not a way that we can safely create a pedestrian access point to the park from that side.
All right. Would you present at Battery Park City Committee on what those capital projects are, please, at Pier A? Because we would love to hear more about that.
Sure.
In January, that'd be great.
See. Okay, moving right along. Thank you. Northwest. I don't want to rush people. I mean, I feel like I don't cut things off, but nobody had a question. Okay. Northwest.
I see no questions.
No, you're
Keep going.
you're on for
All right.
the
So
bigger
this-
chunk.
For the Northwest, the design team is continuing to develop the project since the last meeting. So you're all familiar with our different regions that we're moving the project in. So next slide. Just this is a reminder that there was a meeting here last month where we talked about the interior drainage and the two objectives to prevent floodwater from entering existing sewer connections during a storm event and managing stormwater during a combined surge and rainfall event. Go to the next slide.
Yeah.
This is the location for the pump station at Stuyvesant High School. So in the questions, Peter Plus is on the line. We can talk about that. Anyone has just some questions?
Okay, Wendy.
So that was a great presentation, and one of the things that I just want to make sure that we understand is that only the things, that box to the left where the elevator is going to be substantially above ground, and the rest of the things to the right are underground and won't see them when the project's over. Is that still the case? The box.
The pump station.
Yeah, the pump station next to the elevator, the current elevator.
That's not above ground either.
That is.
No,
only
it's
the
this,
single-
it's that one.
Right?
Yeah. Right.
We're still designing this for
Is Peter on?
Yeah, would you like me to, I can respond to that?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, so just, the current plan is to keep the pump station below grade to the greatest extent possible. However, I do want to point out that we haven't gone through coordination with DEP. This will be DEP's pump station, and so DEP is going to, through the design process, define access, their egress, so I think I would say the intention of this pump station is to be a below ground pump station. However, we have to work with DEP to determine their access requirements as they want to move people into the pump station to operate it, and how they're going to move equipment in and out of it. So those are to be D, but that's the design process that we'll be going through with DEP. And I know a comparison was made between this pump station and the pump station on the fire project. Just please note, this is significantly smaller than the FADE proposed pump station. The FADE proposed pump station, as I understand it, is about 300 MGD. This one right here is about 50 to 60 MGD. So it's much smaller in size.
You were asking that, I was gonna ask that too. I have to say, that we're getting quite a few text messages asking how many trees in fact were removed in the South Battery. So you have an approximation so we can sort of have a response here that's somewhere in the ballpark. Any of you guys?
I think it's better. I think it's better, and I apologize that we don't have that exact figure handy, but I think it's better if we get that and then send it to you and distribute it to whoever wants to know that information.
Okay, will do. Okay. Thank you. Is that it for the North? No, I wouldn't think so. Yeah.
Just more slides. Very quickly, we are having.
Sorry, I was looking, sorry, that's me. I'm sliding around, but I was looking.
No, we assumed this was an update on reach, new
This wa-
developments on 1, 3, and 5, right? So, yeah,
Yes.
keep going. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah.
Great.
Most recent, some successful site walkthroughs on 19.
I can't hear anymore.
Al fell out again?
I think so.
Yeah, the audio went out, but then I just heard you say again. Uh-oh.
That we're coming back. We're just replugging in.
You're not allowed to sit
Yeah.
next to there anymore.
Protesting.
Can you hear me if I speak from here?
You're slightly low volume, but we do hear you.
I would wait for that because, sorry.
Thank you. Sorry.
So please start up, I think.
Did it fall back out?
I'm sorry.
No, it takes
a minute.
You just have to point these things.
Don't touch that one, please, Nancy.
We're hearing you all really well right
We
now.
can hear you now and see your screen.
We plugged them back in.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
The eyes are not on.
I'll live with it.
All right. Can you hear me?
Let me get a new spot.
Can you go ahead?
Yes, we can hear you.
You can hear me. All right. So I just wanted to say we had successful site walkthroughs on the 19th, 21st, and 26th. We had almost 100 people join us on those walkthroughs where we actually walked on each reach. And we received lots of feedback from that, which was great. So next slide. Our next public meeting will be next week, November 30th. And so this slide just really illustrates how we're going to set up this meeting. First, we will focus, we'll have a presentation kind of focusing on the feedback that we received and focusing on the 3 reaches that I mentioned, reach 1, reach 2, and reach 5. And then we'll break out into topic tables where we'll do one-on-one kind of ask the expert situations, and three focused tables will be tree landscape considerations within the project, risk and adaptability, and then battery park city resiliency projects and lower Manhattan coastal resiliency. And we will be live streaming this as well and answering some Q&A. There will be someone manning the Q&A online in parallel with the in-person tabling.
I have a question about the timing of that. The previous big meetings like that had duplicate things back to back, and I couldn't tell with this large, it starts at like 4:30 or something and runs to 8. Is that a single presentation or is that 2 of them again within that time?
It's a single event.
Okay, so it's.
Yeah, what's the breakdown on the time? Because you said that people can call in.
Yes. Nick, do you have some information on the breakdown of the time?
I do. I can share it with everyone. Thanks, Saul. It's in the,
Can you?
it's updated. It's updated. Go ahead.
I'm just saying, put it in your announcement and also send it around the board so we can circulate it because it was unclear. I know something was just, send, say it now, it's fine, but please send it as a written document so we can.
Yes,
send it.
it's been updated in the Eventbrite. I will cut and paste from the Eventbrite and send it to everyone tomorrow. Hold on 1 second, sweetie. Sorry. So 4:30 p.m. is when the registration opens for folks who want to come in and come up. If you registered online, that's fine, but we imagine we'll have some folks who want to come in at that time and register. And then you come up to the cafeteria where the event takes place, and outside the cafeteria, kind of in the anteroom there, as we did last time, we will have participants able to view the display boards of kind of the updated designs where they are at this point in the process, talk with the project staff and share feedback. We'll have comment cards, much the same as we did during the June meeting. That's from 4:30 to 6, so people can make their way in, take some time with the material, speak with the project staff, and go from there. The actual presentation and Q&A will start at 6 p.m., run till about 6:45 or so. So it's not a terribly long presentation, but we will have some substantive updates, especially on the areas that have advanced the most since June, specifically reaches 1, 2, and 5, and some other changes to some of the other reaches. But those are the main updates. And then after that, what we wanted to do, because we know it's been the topic of some interest for some folks, is have some specific tables around the cafeteria where folks can center on themes that we know are recurring questions. And you'll see this in the Eventbrite as well. But the
Thank
three
you
topic
very
table area themes will be tree/landscape considerations within the project.
Whoa. Way too
Nick,
much
hold
detail.
on.
That's good. We got the time. We've got
Oh.
the idea. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. So
We do what is the business of the board tonight, which is to get the update on the Northwest Battery Park City resiliency for 1, 3, and 5 reaches, which 1, 2, and 5. So continue. Sorry. I think we got the idea.
Can I ask a dumb question though? Is
No.
the sixth, is it?
They're supposed to be going through tonight, Wendy, 1, 2, and 5 in the detail.
Okay.
Let's get through that before we ask any
Perfect.
other questions.
Perfect, that's fine.
Okay. Back to you, Kimberly.
This is Gwen. There's no detail going through 1, 2, and 5 tonight. The update tonight is to provide the contextual update as part of the LMCR and to advise you and to talk about what the changes have been and what we're focusing on and what you'll see at the meeting.
Whatever it is.
On the,
Okay, well, let's just hear what the updates are in, without the details, whatever your updates are, of what, what's happening, so then we can.
Okay,
Gwen, I am gonna say, as chair, I'm frustrated because we've talked about it many times and there was supposed to be an update on 1, 2, and 5 done tonight in this meeting. So I'm just gonna say, I'm not sure where the drop of this conversation is.
Tammy, this is Nick Spordone. As we discussed personally on Thursday, there is an update on 1, 2, and 5. The goal tonight is to bring everyone who did not have a chance to participate on the sidewalks up to exactly the point that we brought all the participants on the sidewalks up to on 1, 2, and 5. Beyond that, we are literally still working through and on the presentation for 11:30. So folks who are interested in what we do beyond that should certainly come to our 11:30 meeting. But this evening, we do certainly want to bring the committee up to speed on everything that has been done on 1, 2, and 5 since June and through the site walks, which happened a few weeks ago. Thank you.
There are no other slides besides this one, so we'll see what Kim and Dan can tell us about any details on the design updates with Gwen without slides.
I'll start, and then I will suggest that maybe Peter has some additional color to provide on this. But as Nick said, on Reach 1, since June, there has been a significant focus on trying to address the concerns and the feedback that we received from members of the community, from folks at Hudson River Park, and in Tribeca, and some of the comments that we've gotten from some of the agencies, and to do that in a way that would alleviate some of the concerns about the height of the barrier that would be required along the west side of Route 9A. And so the current focus for the past weeks has been on a different alignment that would go along the east side of Route 9A, adjacent to BMCC, with a crossing further south near Stuyvesant High School. In Reach 2, there's been some significant focus on that reach and the extension of the Esplanade in a way that would allow for better adaptation opportunities over the long term. The upshot of that is a slightly varied proposal at this point to extend the North Esplanade consistently across the Esplanade by 6 feet to accommodate the need for additional circulation, but also the need for adaptability opportunities. And in Reach 5, there's been very concerted and diligent collaboration with the Port Authority regarding the sizing and the placement of the bridging structures that are needed to protect the path tunnels that are underneath the North Cove Marina. And so there is a lot more understanding at this point about how those impact the overall design. And so I would just ask Peter, if he a little bit more explanation and description of these changes on reaches 1, 2, and 5 that he can share with you.
Sure. Sorry, can you hear me, everybody? Okay, great.
Yes.
So, yeah, just building off of what Gwen had said, on Reach 1, as you folks know, we've gotten a lot of feedback from you folks, from the community, from HRP, Hudson River Park.
Peter.
Yes.
Peter.
This is a presentation, a public presentation for Community Board 1 in which the public is invited. There is no one that would, unless they were as close to this as some of us who've been working on this for the last, 6 or 7 years, would understand without anything visual. Is there some sort of visual component to this, like the rest of the Lower Manhattan Coastal Resiliency presentation? I mean, is there some, can you show some pictures of what you're describing?
There is nothing else.
More people here who are presenting. You have two very diligent, I mean, I'm confused. And I'm frankly, somewhat appalled, to be quite honest. I think that's extraordinary to come to a presentation of a 92-acre park that's been going on for a long time without any visual information to help allow the public to understand. And yes, there's one meeting on the 30th, but the whole point of this meeting was that there was another public engagement on the specifics of these few reaches, or just generally what it looks like today, what updates have been done after 30%, a sort of debrief, much like we just received from Jordan did team. So I'm sorry to be negative here, but I don't know how valuable it is to simply talk about it. I guess that's all we've got. But so am I just to ask the final question, confirming there are no visuals as part of this presentation? Is that correct?
There are no additional visuals this evening, Alice. There will be plenty of visuals next week in a matter of days from now, but there are no more visuals at this meeting. That's correct.
And I just want to point out and remind you that is completely different agency partnership than the city has showed the community board. And I'm putting it out there on record. If you look even for BMCR and everything else that has been shown tonight has come with detailed presentations and updates. All of them have done their own individual meetings in other places. So where normally we have a great amount of partnership on the Battery Park City Authority, this is not the best. And we know the information exists because it was given in part verbally on a walkthrough. So we know that there is information, even small amounts of it, that could have been shown and could have been shared. You have two people in the room and they have nothing that they can point to, and the community who is online has nothing that they can see. And for people who have joined us for the first time to see the updates on Reach 1, 2, and 5, have absolutely no idea when you're talking about crossing and the focus on the alignment. Where are you crossing? Are you crossing exactly where? You were able to show and talk about it at the walkthrough. So I'm concerned as to why you're not able to show and talk about it here.
Well, I think we've made the point. So I didn't mean to, well, I guess I did interrupt, Peter, but is there something you want to tell us that you think would be helpful to the public? We have 13 attendees at this point, almost 9 o'clock. So there were a lot of people who were interested and obviously have questions. So whatever you can impart, I guess, in the next few minutes, and then we could open it up for questions. I guess that's the best we can do.
Yeah, I was just gonna elaborate on, the description that Gwen had given. But I'll say, if come to the meeting on the 30th, you'll see it in all of its detail. I mean, part of the issue, I'm familiar with a lot of these other projects, is that, literally concurrently to this meeting, our design team is working on getting those things done. So I know the status of those other projects, and the speed of what we're trying to do to respond to some of the feedback we've gotten. It takes a bit of effort to get that all done and get that changed. So they will be seen on the 30th, and I think you'll like what you're going to see. But sorry, I don't have images tonight. Maybe if going through it verbally doesn't help, it may be that if there's any questions that you want to offer.
Well, I was gonna say, was he talking about the platform on 5? Is that when we got interrupted, is that what he was describing?
Yes.
Yeah.
I would like to hear a little bit more about that, because, I mean, what my dumb question from earlier is, unfortunately, I have a work engagement that the night of the 30th, and I can't come, and I'm trying to see if, what component is, I'm gonna try and see I'm gonna try and see it, but the hardest part, to Tammy and Alice's point, is that these dates get put on the calendar 2 months minimum in advance. And, for those of us who have, calendars are difficult. So I am incredibly interested, and I really want to hear all the details, and I know I'm going to miss them on the 30th, and I apologize for that. So even if you're just describing them, I'd love to hear more about whatever the path train bridging, I think you called it, what that means. So I'll take whatever you can give whenever you can. And I'm sorry, I'm gonna not be able to see all of the good work that you're doing. I have to go watch it later at another time. I'm not gonna be able to be there in person. So go ahead with the bridging or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I could just, maybe I'll just take a minute here and I'll just go over some of the technical highlights quickly of all 3. Gwen said on Reach 1, we've pushed it to the east, and we're right now trying to figure out how we're going to be crossing Harrison and 9A. We have a number of technical options on how to do that, and we're in the process of researching those options and balancing and making the choices that balance, visual impact, reliability, time of deployment, et cetera, for those crossings. Gwen mentioned on Reach 2, we've established that the new design is going to be 6 feet out from an adaptability perspective. We're in the process of laying that out right now, and obviously continuing to talk with the state, with HRPT, and with the Army Corps and all the federal all the federal partners with Army Corps. On Reach 5, we're continuing to talk to the Port Authority about the design of the bridging structure. The Port Authority obviously is a significant stakeholder for us because we're protecting the path tube. And so as we talk with the Port Authority and we finalize the outline of our structure, we'll better know how the structure is physically represented in that reach right outside of Pump House Park. And again, we're trying to balance all the issues at the current choke point in front of Pump House Park. And we're in the process of that. And, frankly, we hope to be able to show something on that that's more clearly illustrative of the choices that we're trying to make on the 30th.
Okay. Justine.
Thank you so much. Thanks. And so quick question. When you say the choke point on Pump House by Pump House Park, where do you mean exactly? To me, Pump House Park is yeah, good, point to it, exactly.
Yeah, what I mean by the choke point, I mean is the esplanade there has a relatively narrow dimension. And so, we as a design team refer to that. I shouldn't refer to it so colloquially, but basically the Esplanade there is very narrow at that point, right outside of Pump House Park.
Are you
That's what
talking about narrow from the park to the marina?
Yes.
Yeah. Like if you walk in front of Pump House Park and the water's to your right and the Pump House Park is to your left, that section of Esplanade just, gets narrower relative to the rest of the Esplanade and the authority's property.
Because the rest is so large. It's not very narrow at all, but it's narrow comparatively. Is that that's I
That's
guess, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yes,
All
that's right.
right.
It's a better way of
And
saying it.
if we go back over to Reach 2, when you're saying about the 6 foot out, you're talking about building out the Esplanade north, correct? To make it wider.
Correct.
I say
Building
wider.
out north.
Okay.
That's right. Yes.
All right. And then I'm hearing when you talk about Reach 1 that you're doing by moving the alignment across the street to by BMCC, you are moving away from, thankfully, the wall by the water. Is that correct? As much as possible?
That is correct. That has it's moving the alignment of the flood protection system away from the water, away from the greenway, and it places it in a location that has more minimal visual impacts and view quarter impacts. There's some technical challenges on the east side of 9A, particularly with some utility work that was not present on the west side, but those technical challenges are surmountable. And so right now the design team is coordinating with utility providers and trying to work out the technical issues with the subsurface existing conditions. And again, just talking to BMC, Borough Mountain Community College folks. We met with DOT last week. There's a lot of ongoing stakeholder coordination as we contemplate these adjustments to respond to the feedback that we've been given. And so we're basically continually talking to stakeholders about that right now.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then, sorry, I'm sorry, Alice and Tammy, I do have a couple of questions about this. So then the underground or slightly above ground pump house would be somewhere around the line between Reach 2 and Reach 1, or is it a little bit over? I'm trying to get the idea where the street is. It's
Yeah,
just like right south to right there. Yeah.
you got it. It's right about there. Yes, someone has an arrow and they're circling it, but that's approximately the location. Yes, that's right.
Okay, that's helpful. And then I have a question now, and I do believe it impacts Reach 2, Reach 1, and Reach 5. What about the trees? And I know that this is really more, the trees are really impacting especially Reach 3 and then 6 and 7. But in terms of having a site map of the trees or tree mapping of what's going to stay, what's going to go, where you think you're going to be placing stuff, I know we've asked for it. Will that be ready for the 30th? Because we've been asking for it for a while now, the maps about the trees.
Yeah, I know. Well, I guess there's a couple things. There's work being done to document some of the existing trees, and some of the work's completed. I think some of the work still has to be finalized. I know that the project team has been talking about the landscaping approach and our approach to trees on many of the public meetings. And part of the reason why we're having on the 30th a specific breakout session on trees is because this is something that we sense people want to talk about. So
yeah, they do.
We're coming to that with our tree experts and illustrative examples and diagrams about trees so that we can communicate better to folks about things like the proximity of trees to the flood wall, for example, right? We want to give folks a complete picture that, what we're trying to prevent is a large tree near the flood wall that has roots that could undermine the foundation of the wall, that has an ability to topple and impact the wall and possibly damage the wall. So there's all kinds of mechanisms that trees could have in order to impact that wall. So we're just trying to explain all that because we've talked about it, but we haven't talked about it maybe as visually as we could. And so at that breakout session, we'll have a lot of visuals on that.
And that'll be on the 30th.
That's another, that's right.
This will be the last question, Justine, because we've got a lot of people here that.
Oh, yeah, no, that's totally fine. And my last question or my last request would be, is that if you could have by the 30th, the 30th or the January Battery Park City Committee meeting or the next EPA committee, but I'd really rather have it as soon as possible. Even a mapping of the trees that exist now, I'm going to imagine that there's going to be a lot of, ifs, not ambiguity, but unknowns about where the landscaping, what's going to look like until you're actually closer to being done. I mean, you can have a plan, but then things might change. But there's got to be a mapping of the trees now to show, okay, this is what's here now. This is what you're taking away. And then the hope is to replace more, whatever your deal is. But people just want to know. And I really think that it would be in the best interests of communication and transparency, for everybody, if you could get it out as quickly as possible. And even if with the caveat that it's not exact and it's not a full plan for the future, but it is what exists as of today. Thank you. And thank you, Alice and Tammy, for letting me talk so long.
Thanks very much, Justine. Okay, other
I
questions?
can answer something on the tree canopy survey. We are working on that. We're pretty far along on it, and we'll be ready to share it in early 24. So.
Thank you.
And is that just for the Northwest or is that?
For the fire project.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Wendy.
So I'm just wondering if the next thing that we're going to see is actually where the wall is, or what, the deep wall that goes down to the bathtub. Like, because we usually just see these reaches like this. And I know when we were walking and we were talking about where the wall is, if everything going forward now will be a drawing like you have here, I know you have it broken down, but have the exact, maybe it can be a little bigger so you can see the street and the sidewalk and that type of thing. Because I know like at the playground, one of the things that I asked is that, and I know that we discussed it, is that to make sure the public knows that it was discussed and decided that the playground is going to be on the wet side. It's a decision that we've made as a community. It was controversial. I want to just talk about that a little bit more for anyone who's coming to the meeting for the first time. And what it means to be on the dry side or the wet side. And because one of the things that keeps coming up in the meeting, there seems to be different concerns from the public when I go on the walkthroughs and I'm listening to them, and some of them are ongoing maintenance costs. And I think it's very important to talk to the people that live there, that if you put things on the wet side, what the plan is cost-wise when storms come. And obviously we won't know how many storms or how bad the storms, and maybe we'll get lucky for the next 50 years, but we just need to have an understanding to describe not just what we're building, but also what is wet and what is dry and what that means. So for example, in the playground, if it stays on the wet side, how much of the playground, the sand is toast, but is the equipment toast? Is the understuff toast? I mean, I don't know what that means in terms of building back the playground. And we still may be comfortable, because we've decided it, that it stays on the wet side. But I just don't know if people know how much, if I go back to the ball fields, how expensive that was. I don't think any of us who lived in the neighborhood understood how expensive it was to replace the ball field. So that's one point. So if all the maps can be, this is the dry side, this is the wet side, and what that means going forward. And obviously when you replace the plants, you'll put in more salt tolerant plants. We've heard all this. And then a dotted line or a shaded area or something that's very visual, what that FEMA required space on either side of the wall is, so that is actually drawn too. And I think, I know people are working on getting exceptions to the rule, but I think we also have to acknowledge that we may not get the exception to the rule. That's a FEMA decision. That's not a Battery Park decision. And if I'm wrong about that, then please talk about that. Because I think that those things come up over and over again. There's a big group of people that want to talk about cost and cost alone, to the point where they don't even want you to do a curved line because they think drawing a straight line in the sidewalk is cheaper than a curved line. So I think you need to address that part of it. And then you also need to address, in the South Resiliency, you were able to put in the cistern and you were able to do some of the other things because we took it all up. The rain events, the 4 inches of rain in an hour are going to be a continued thing. And we just got this wonderful thing from Rebuild by Design asking for experts, and you guys are the experts, how to mitigate rainwater. So I would like for part of the presentation, even though I know that the money is for storm events, but I think that if you could add in what will benefit these deluges that we're getting as well. Because that has to do with, if you're just digging it all up, you can put stuff in. And I don't really hear very much on that front, because I know that's not your mandate, and I know that's not what you get the money
It
for.
is part of it though. We are designing for the cloud first.
So I was gonna
Okay,
say,
we gotta, okay, so I'm gonna use, because.
so I would like that to be very clear.
All
In
of
a
those
minute.
topics.
When you get hands up in the
Yeah,
public.
Thank you,
Yes.
sorry about that, thank you.
No, those are all excellent points that we've discussed before, and so, yes, Nancy.
I've also heard questions about where the money is coming from. They don't really seem to understand the different buckets or who is required or who is paying for what. And they're worried that somehow it's going to come back on them.
Yes.
Let me take that. The money is going to be, it's going to be coming through a bond issuance. And that money, that will be used to cover the debt service for that bond issuance is money that would otherwise be paid as excess revenues under the arrangement that Battery Park City Authority has with the City of New York. So that money would otherwise go to the City of New York. The City of New York, through its approvals of our capital program and our bond issuances, agrees to forego a certain amount of the monies that they would otherwise be entitled to cover our debt service. That's where the money comes from.
I have a question. I would like to know, it doesn't require a drawing, thankfully, where you're at with the conversations with the developers of the Independence Plaza Tower. This is, we understand a large-scale building that's coming into our neighborhood. I think it's 900 feet. In fact, I think it's considered the largest building in Tribeca. And I understand that, obviously they're interested to know, more about what's going to be aligning against their property. Where are you at with that, and what are their responses to these plans? Because I assume you've been in conversation with them.
Alice, just so you know, thank you for inviting Benji Rubenstein from Stellar Management, and I think we have
Oh, great.
Yeah.
That's
Morgan Mann that should be on.
Oh, I
if you
didn't-
Want to promote them?
Okay, so we.
So
invite
yes,
us
so
to
yes, I
this
just want to
preemptive-
say, first off, thank you for inviting us. It's nice to all be in the same room and for ensuring that we have
Morgan's
good
promoted.
communication with Battery Park City Authority. I got an email from Nick today giving us heads up about the meeting on the 30th. So I think we'll be seeing it, updates for the first time with the general public, for what it's worth. And yeah, I hope that we can see some of the concerns that were addressed, which I'll just list out so it's on public record. Making sure that there is understanding that egress from the building, especially in emergency situations that have happened many times in the past, from 9/11 to Sandy to blackouts, can still function, that our electricity point of entries for all utilities that go below grade, we understand, won't be interfered. What the wall will look like integrated with the renovations happening at the existing building. There's going to be a new lobby there. And then it would be great to know if there's any progress made with DOT. I know you said that you're coordinating with them, potentially widening the sidewalk, an option that shows the wall that's less visible, more embedded in planters. And then also we wanted to know if you had done any studies where you put the wall on the north side of North Moore Street, where there's already bollards that are essentially walling off that sidewalk and there's really a lot less activity. Again, I think we also wanted to know a little bit more about those vaults that are in the street and what will happen if we don't protect it. Let me go to the questions. You know, we've had these conversations offline. We have been in contact with the authority again. Thank you to one. But we look forward to having more conversations. And I will just add, it would be nice to have some more one-on-one conversations versus kind of seeing this for the first time on Thursday.
I'd kind of echo the question about the north side of North Moore. We did a walk through, the district manager and I today on North Moore Street, looking down from the top of the high point of Greenwich. And there is, when you look at the existing structures and infrastructure, yes, the south side at the Vornado and Stellar Management is a far more vulnerable site. But it does seem that if you're already going up West Street, that the north side of North Moore already has, for a large percentage of it, a flood wall that has been built with a glass wall on top of it. So the question seems to be, in terms of obviously budget and, you know, connectivity being a really big thing, you know, trying to get connected to High Point, but also working with the constituent who's got a lot of concerns for his side and his egress, because his building is ground level, entrance and exit. And you look across the street and there's a 4-foot wall already there. So how those connections could be. And then the other question is, I know you're talking to BMCC, but the Hudson River Park Trust, Advisory Council, and the Trust sent significant feedback on their concerns, both environmental and others, about a wall going up the west side of 9A. But it's not, which is what we told them. And when they asked exactly where, is it going in the median or is it going definitely on the west side? We don't know those answers to be able to tell them. I co-chair the advisory council there. I would love to have understood today what that answer was.
That was kind of the point of the meeting, is a kind of that level update. So I'm sorry that wasn't clear. It seemed obvious to all of us. But in any case,
I'm gonna shut up because there are 3 hands up.
okay, there's 3 hands. I'm gonna call this meeting closed at 9:30, so I'm gonna, ask that everyone goes quickly. Diane Stein, thank you.
Oh, I have to.
Oh, okay. And thank you very much for coming, and expressing your concerns.
Diane Stein, you can unmute yourself now.
2 minutes each question.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, Justine asked half my question. The other question I had was, what outreach is being done for the residents of Independence Plaza? Because the last meeting, there were postcards in that we received, and now Thanksgiving is coming up. Some people will be away or busy with Thanksgiving holiday plans. So are you planning, what are you planning to, how are you planning to notify tenants about the November 30th meeting?
Hi, Diane. This is Nick Spordone. I can weigh in. I'm so glad that you liked the postcards last time. You should find another one in your mailbox probably tomorrow. Every address, and you're very welcome. Every address in 10013, 1002, 10280, and 10282 will be getting postcards in their mailbox, as well as the 2 Battery Park City buildings that are in the 10004 zip code. So we'd love to see you there, and I'm glad that you like them and that you remember the postcards, because we put a lot of work into getting those out. So thank you.
Thanks, Nick. Pledge Vega. I hope I pronounced that right.
And then Michelle. Pledge, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Am I muted? Hello?
Hi.
Hi.
Hear you.
I'll try and be quick so I can get my comments on the record. So the first one is, I'd like to echo what everyone's been saying about counting up trees. It's something we'll be asking forever and ever and ever. How hard can it be? It's a finite number. The other comment I want to get on record is, have there been any movement in applying to FEMA to be excused from this 15-foot variance? I heard someone, I believe it was Wendy, talking about the cost, but unless there is a proper cost benefit analysis of which one would be more or less costly, we cannot make that assessment right now. And as we know, the trees and the vegetation are very important in determining the design flood elevation. The last comment I want to make, and it's very, very hard because we were not shown anything today, but it was very surprising to me to hear that Reach 1 has been moved east. And as we remember, that's where all the flooding happened, and that is the part that is the lowest. And meanwhile, all the other reaches where there was no flooding, at the very least, there wasn't a flooding from Reach 2, stay where they are instead of being moved closer to the buildings. I find this very curious, and I wonder how much of it was pressure from other places to get, you know, the nice views of the river while we're stuck with walls over here. Thank you.
Is that a question?
I think it's comments on the.
With respect to the FEMA the set off question, I think that you need to understand that the decisions about trees, this is not just a FEMA decision. This is a decision made by our design team based on a number of factors, the FEMA set off being one of them. And I think, so maybe, Peter, if you could maybe explain that a little bit more so that it's clearer.
You know, I'm going to ask you do this. I hate to jump in, but I think we're going to run out of time.
We don't have any slides to look at to really know. The community has asked specific questions for set-offs in specific reaches. So maybe it's better at your meeting because we don't have anything for people to, you know.
That's fine. That's fine. We were just trying to answer a question.
Well, you know what would be great, Gwen, if you could just write the answer and then we can put it in the minutes or something. Could we do that way? Because it's late and I'm concerned about the time at this point. So if that's okay, I'd ask if you could do that. That would be great.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably not something that's easily put in the chat, but we will provide a written response.
That's what I mean. Yeah, written response. And that way everyone can have it. I will send it to the woman who, Kledja Vega, who asked the question. And then we can also have it, we can put it on our website. Michelle, is that it? Okay, I think the last person is Michelle Ashkin.
Okay, I'll try to be quick. So I want to just say for the record, first of all, I want to know, I have a long written statement, so I can't say that, and I want to know where to submit that to you because I couldn't possibly put it on the, you know, where it said to submit the statement. So maybe you can tell me where to submit that to you, where it's on the record. But I do want to say in response to what people have been saying, it's really not the number of trees, but the quality and the age and the maturity of the trees, because that makes a big difference as to what is cut and what isn't cut and the services they provide. I want to make a statement about, I was taking a look as I walked through several times about the distance that the trees are now from where the wall will be. And I think that they're well beyond 15 feet. So I'm questioning why they would all have to be cut down for that variance if they're beyond the 15-foot variance limitation. There's a lot that we need to talk about for the ecological services of these trees and what it means to this community to cut down our linear forest, which really amounts basically to habitat destruction. And I don't say that lightly. And in addition to the tree issues, there were so many other issues that were not really addressed that need to be addressed. For the people are concerned about the burden to the residents, the discomfort and the health concerns of the noise pollution, of the high decibel level, of the anticipated air pollution from machinery, impacts of dust on children and elderly and those who have asthma. There are concerns about the daily diminishment in the quality of life throughout the project. There was concerns about the impact to our property values, a huge concern if we want to rent or sell our apartments basically in a construction zone. And there are others, and who's paying for it, which we started to talk about, but that question was not fully and satisfactorily answered either to many of the people who were on those sidewalks. So I'd like to submit everything that I've written to the board, so that it can be on record, and I would like you to just let me know where I can do that. Thanks.
You can email it to both the Northwest Battery Park City email, which is,
Nick, do you have that email?
and also Community Board 1. I suggest everybody emails to both. Community Board 1 is man01 at, oh my gosh, at cb.nyc.gov.
And I know. Sorry, MAN01 at CB1.
I'll get it.
If you look up Manhattan Community Board 1, you will find that will pop right up for you on Google, as well as Battery Park City Authority, to make it easier.
It's man01 at cb.nyc.gov.
Okay, are there any other issues? I think what you've heard is a lot of issues that have been brought up, very important ones that I hope that you can take back in the next few days and answer more fully, or, in whatever way you can. And I would just ask that if I can speak on behalf of my committee as an architect, I would ask that you don't come back again without drawings, full set of drawings, if you're going to describe anything in this part, because it's very, very difficult for the public, any of us, to really be able to be helpful to you, to have a real conversation. And I'm sure you can appreciate that from tonight. So I think,
Alice,
if I'm
I
not
just,
mistaken, I'm gonna adjourn the meeting.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to say I put in the chat for Michelle and some others the Northwest Battery Park City Resiliency Project address, if that's helpful.
Thanks very much.
And-
Those who use chat, yeah.
Sure, and what I will also do is I'll put in the chat right before we end here, there's about 176 odd or so question spreadsheet that came from the June meeting, and in there are questions and answers about how the project is funded, which I would respectfully say has been answered fully and repeatedly, but certainly people are coming to the project at different points, and we want to make sure that folks have all the same information. So I will put that information in there as well, and there's full explanation about how the program is funded.
Okay, thank you. Thank you to, I assume Battery Park City Authority team you're done? Yeah, okay. Thank you and good night. And thank you all for being so patient for such a long meeting, a lot of ground to cover. Thanks very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Everybody, happy
Thanks.
Thanksgiving.